Chapter 2372. Now, all the major sect performance was very restrained. In addition to stepping up the preparation for the war with the Zhao family, they were also repairing the relationship with the Chunyang Palace. Even a major sect was like this. Those little cultivators did not dare to speak out. They complained in private for fear of being heard by people with ulterior motives. Among the cultivators who were looking forward to it, the sect masters of the major sect had the most complicated feelings. If they had known that Master Yang could become an 8th grade alchemist, they would have stood by Master Yang's side at that time. When the news spread, the world was in an uproar. This time, the sect masters of the major sect were even more regretful. Yang Chun and his wife were simply a treasure bowl. No one knew when they would pull out a rare treasure from it. If they had known this earlier, why would they bother to listen to those golden immortal ancestors? If they helped Yang Chun at that time, wouldn't it be easier to talk to him now? However, the reality was so ruthless. Many people had only heard of Bai Xia Fairy Gao Yu's refining level in Chunyang Palace before, but not many people had seen it. However, when Wang Yong took out his own life flying sword that had obviously been upgraded by at least 2 grades, it really shocked everyone. However, Wang Yong was a pure fire attribute. The flying sword with the dual attributes of water and fire was now somewhat unbalanced and biased towards the fire attribute. Gao Yu made a move to help her master balance the 2 attributes. Wang Yong had also participated in various experiences, and many people had seen Wang Yong's life source magic weapon, but they couldn't believe that the Qilin flying sword had really improved a lot, and the aura on it was not chaotic at all. It was so pure that it was even purer than when Wang Yong refined alone. More cultivators were secretly staring at the doubting cultivators, waiting for the right time to teach them a lesson, using it to vent the anger of Bai Xia Fairy Gao Yu, and at the same time to please Master Yang. Although many of these cultivators also had doubts in their hearts, they did not express it in front of anyone. From the perspective of the spiritual world, it was a great thing for Yang Chun to become an 8th grade alchemist. At least there would not be a situation like Lin Zongxuan, who was seriously injured and could not be cured. But from the perspective of their previous attitude, if Yang Chun became an 8th grade alchemist, it would be a slap in the face to their previous performance. The lords of the major sect were also shocked when they heard the news. They thought that Gao Yu's high level of refining weapons was just a rumor. What could be achieved in the mortal world might not be achieved in the spiritual world. They didn't expect it to be true. With the complete version of the universe treasure fostering secret art, unique tools, the unique ability to help others refine without being contaminated with her own aura, and the most suitable water and fire attributes, Gao Yu was simply the best person to help Wang Yong refine his natal magic weapon. How is this possible? While countless people were stunned and questioned, one by one, they rushed to Gao Yu's side like madmen. If they could let a master at the peak of Xian Immortal help them refine their natal magic weapon, it would be equivalent to increasing their combat effectiveness by at least 30% out of thin air. This temptation was even more direct than asking for the best medicinal pills from Master Yang. The Lord of Wuji Demon School was the first to enjoy this benefit. Gao Yu helped him refine his natal flying sword. This was a very clear return. Even the golden immortal ancestor Su couldn't do it, but Gao Yu did it very easily. Tao Junki was still worried about the contradiction between her husband and the sect. Now that the remaining disciples of Xintian sect had all been merged into Chunyang Palace, Tao Junki no longer had the previous troubles. Her inner demons were removed, and her mind was clear. Her whole person seemed to be in high spirits, and her mental state was in a mess. As a result, her cultivation base was also advancing by leaps and bounds. However, Yang Chun did not refuse Tao Junki, but let her accompany him happily. Over the years, among his wives and concubines, Tao Junki was the one who suffered the most. With the situation at that time, Yang Chun didn't know how to help Tao Junki untie the knot in her heart, unless she could betray Xintian sect. In recent days, Yang Chun did not ask the women to forcibly improve their cultivation. The reason was very simple. More haste, less speed. Their cultivation base had improved fast enough, so they didn't need to put all their energy on cultivation. It was the right thing to find their own way to relax. At this time, returning to the sect to be bothered by chores was also a short interval in cultivation. If they could handle it well, it would also be a small improvement for their state of mind. Yang Qin's wives and concubines, except for those in Xintian's sect, were basically called back by their respective sect to carefully inquire about Yang Qin's recent situation. They hoped to get more news about Yang Qin from Yang Qin's wives and concubines and find out more about Yang Qin's strength. This matter was not concealed from the outside world. When the news came out, it caused many people to frown. Wasn't this nonsense? Could it be that his own life source magic weapon could be improved through the hands of others? However, none of the doubtful cultivators said much, waiting to see the final farce. Even the three women who stayed with Yang Qin, except for Gong Sunling, who was still controlling the mountain river geographical map to constantly devour the space of the monster realm. Gao Yu was basically helping Master Wang Yong refine his life source magic weapon at this time. Tao Junkie, on the other hand, occupied her husband and accompanied him to refine pills. Wang Yong did not disappoint his disciples' good intentions. He generously took out his own life source magic weapon and asked Gao Yu to help refine it. He didn't feel ashamed that his disciple had surpassed his master at all. Instead, he was very happy and comforted. As a disciple, being able to surpass their master was the greatest pride of many masters who looked forward to the best of their disciples. At this time, Tao Junkie happened to be alone. Accompanying Tao Junkie to spend some happy days alone was also Yang Qin's compensation for Tao Junkie's hard work over the years. No matter what, Tao Junkie was also a fire cultivator. Although she did not develop in the direction of an alchemist master, she still had some foundation. It was more than enough to help her husband prepare some medicinal materials, although Yang Qin did not need these at all. The material of Grandmaster Wang Yong's life source magic weapon was still a warm auction item that Yang Qin bought at a certain auction. It was a Qilin horn with dual attributes of water and fire. After years of polishing and refining by Grandmaster Wang Yong, it became the current life source flying sword. Only Gao Yu Gong Sunling and Tao Junkie stayed with Yang Qin. Gao Yu Gong Sunling was a disciple of Chunyang Palace, so naturally, she didn't need to leave. Just when all parties were still shocked by Gao Yu's amazing refining technique, Yang Qin easily came out and took out a batch of refined 8 revolution pills. Holding the life source flying sword that was almost brand new but connected to his life, the master of Wuji Demon School was so happy that he almost cried out. Grandmaster Su had a good eye. In the future, Wuji Demon School would definitely advance and retreat together with Chunyang Palace. Chapter 2373. Since the ancient times, there had never been an 8th-tier pill refinement master in the spiritual realm. There were only a few 8th revolution pills. Basically, all of them were sent down from the immortal world by various sects. The price they had to pay was definitely enough to make one's heart ache to death. Countless pill refinement masters and talented seniors had been pursuing the path of 8th-tier pill refinement master. However, including all the sect and super sect, there was not a single pill refinement master who could officially become an 8th-tier pill refinement master in the spiritual realm. Even the Pill Cauldron School, which was famous for its pill refinement, had countless generations of genius disciples. The one who was closest to becoming an 8th-tier pill refinement master was a profound immortal expert tens of thousands of years ago. When he was trying to break through to the 8th revolution, he was already close to the stage of pill collection. However, in the end, he still couldn't control his own cultivation level and ascended on the spot, leaving behind a pile of medicinal liquid for his descendants. Although it was just a medicinal liquid, it was still regarded as the most precious collection. Its medicinal effect was more than 10 times stronger than a 7th revolution pill. Unfortunately, after so many years, the remaining medicinal liquid had been used up when rescuing the important figures of the Pill Cauldron School. Not a single drop was left. Many descendants wanted to use the medicinal liquid as a reference to the alchemy footsteps of their predecessors, but in the end, they couldn't make a breakthrough. That was the closest cultivator in the spiritual realm to becoming an 8th-tier pill refinement master. Since then, no one was able to touch the threshold of an 8th-tier pill refinement master. Countless pill refinement masters have been working hard for God knows how long, but in the end, they could only wander around the ranks of the 7th tier. Yang Chun had always been the most amazing pill refinement master in the mortal world. In a mortal world, he had already broken through the heavenly moat of a 5th-tier pill refinement master. After arriving in the spiritual realm, his achievements were even more extraordinary. When he was a 6th-tier pill refinement master, the pills he refined were treasures that countless 7th-tier pill refinement masters could only dream of. All the cultivators thought that Yang Chun had reached his limit when he became a 7th-tier pill refinement master. Unexpectedly, in less than 1,000 years, Yang Chun had already crossed the heavenly moat that countless of his predecessors couldn't. Grandmaster Yang's 7th Revolution pill had always been the finale item of the Wanbao Tower since its debut. Many cultivators had exhausted all of their family's wealth and still couldn't afford it. Only the major sects, relying on their good cooperation with Yang Chun and the Chunyang Palace, were qualified to directly ask for a certain number of elixirs from the Chunyang Palace. Before Yang Chun claimed that he could concoct an 8 Revolution pill, no one believed that Yang Chun could do it. Everyone thought that Yang Chun was using the excuse of refining pills in seclusion to give the Joint Commander a short buffer time and a way out of this embarrassing situation. Everyone took it for granted, but they didn't expect it to be such a shocking ending. I should have known. I should have thought of this earlier. Sect Master Chui of the 5 Elements sect was the one who regretted the most. After hearing the news, even someone as calm as him couldn't help but get up and start pacing back and forth in the meeting hall, muttering to himself. Back then, Sect Master Chui saw with his own eyes that Yang Chun had an agreement with an unknown expert of the dragon race. The content of the agreement seemed to be that Yang Chun would help the expert of the dragon race to concoct a pill called Fusion Embryo Pill. That expert of the dragon race seemed to be very generous and gave Yang Chun enough time to grow. Now that he thought about it, Sect Master Chui wished he could slap himself a few times. Even the expert of the dragon race, who was at least a golden immortal, was tempted by the pill. How could the grade of the pill be low? That expert of the dragon race, who had only come into contact with Yang Chun once, could trust Yang Chun so much. Sect Master Chui, who knew Yang Chun better, had actually made a mistake. Why would there be 2 golden immortal experts of the dragon race by Yang Chun's side? The reason was obvious. If it wasn't for Yang Chun fulfilling their request, would the proud experts of the dragon race help a human cultivator to deal with a golden immortal expert just because of a small favor? The relationship between the 5 Elements sect and Yang Chun wasn't just limited to the Murong sisters, who were Yang Chun's concubines. Even Sect Master Chui and the entire 5 Elements sect were saved by Yang Chun. If they had continued to support Yang Chun, the 5 Elements sect would most likely have benefited a lot from Yang Chun's concoction of the 8 Revolution pill. Unfortunately, such a good situation was destroyed by a single thought. If time could go back, other sects wouldn't dare to say, at least Sect Master Chui of the 5 Elements sect would definitely not hesitate to stand on Yang Chun's side, even if the Golden Immortal Master Ancestor decided to do so. At the end of the day, it was all because of the fear of the profound Heaven sect that was hidden deep in their bones. Even if the profound Heaven sect had been annihilated, even if the remaining disciples of the profound Heaven sect had made the Great Heart Devil oath and worshipped the new Patriarch, they still didn't dare to be completely at ease. They had to find a reason to get rid of these hidden dangers before they could sleep peacefully. But if they thought about it carefully, it wasn't Chunyang Palace who took the initiative to accept the disciples of the profound Heaven sect. It was all because the major sects themselves couldn't deal with them and took the initiative to send them to Chunyang Palace. From the beginning to the end, it was the major sects' fault for targeting Yang Chun. They couldn't blame anyone else. Yang Chun understood all of this very well. The major sect was afraid of the profound Heaven sect, but they didn't want to bear the reputation of slaughtering the disciples of the profound Heaven sect. Therefore, they packed up a lot of trouble and sent it to Chunyang Palace. This mentality was the same as those experts who rebelled in the immortal world in the past. They didn't want to bear the reputation of killing immortals and sent those guys to the immortal execution platform. Of course, there was another common point. In the end, Yang Chun got all the benefits. Yang Chun got all the benefits. The Five Elements sect was not the only one who felt remorseful. Except for Wuji Demon School, none of the higher-ups of the sect had a happy smile on their faces. Although all the sect only got the news and didn't see the 8 revolution pill with their own eyes, none of the sect doubted it. Of course, Yang Chun didn't give any room for doubt. The next day, Yang Chun showed the newly refined 8 revolution essence culturing pill in public. The essence culturing pill was just a simple pill. It was the right pill for Yang Chun's first attempt to break through to the 8 revolution essence culturing pill. Yang Chun gave all the essence culturing pills to Gong Sunling, and Yang Chun announced that he would go into seclusion again to break through to the 8 revolution Ganoderma lucidum jade pill. This time, the Joint Command Center was facing a formidable enemy. The area within 10 miles of Master Yang's seclusion place was completely blocked. No one was allowed to disturb Master Yang's alchemy. Countless alchemists hoped that they could observe Master Yang's alchemy. Unfortunately, the only one allowed by Yang Chun to accompany him was Tao Junkie. While Yang Chun was refining pills, the major sect had begun to communicate with Chunyang Palace, Wang Yong, and Yang Chun's wives and concubines. The purpose was to obtain the 8 revolution Ganoderma lucidum jade pill refined by Yang Chun. Chapter 2374. From the beginning of the 6th grade, Yang Chun's Lingji mushroom jade pill was already recognized as a life-saving medicine in the spiritual world. Many cultivators were seriously injured, and they all relied on the 6th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill to save their lives. Of course, only the one refined by Master Yang Chun himself was the real life-saving medicine. Although the one refined by ordinary alchemists was also a 6th revolution Ganoderma mushroom jade pill, the effect was several times worse than that refined by Yang Chun. Even the 6th revolution Ganoderma mushroom jade pill refined by Yang Chun had surpassed the 7th revolution Ganoderma mushroom jade pill refined by ordinary alchemists. A 6th revolution Dan was already like this. How powerful would an 8th revolution Lingji mushroom jade pill be? Perhaps the injury of Lin Zongxuan, a peak golden immortal, could be easily healed. By now, no cultivator would doubt whether Yang Chun could refine the 8th revolution Ganoderma mushroom jade pill. The only uncertainty was the time. However, it seemed that all the sect hoped that the time would be a little longer so that they could find a way to make up for the previous gap, and then get the 8th revolution pill refined by Master Yang according to the previous cooperation method. The consequences of the previous wrong choice were immediately revealed at this moment. As expected, Wuji Demon School was received by Chunyang Palace in a grand manner. It was still the same as before. They easily and cheaply got the reserve pills, and the quantity was twice as much as before. The sect master of Wuji Demon School, who got the news, couldn't stop smiling. The representatives of the 4 sects of Taoism, Yin Yang Demon School, and Samsara Valley were treated differently. They could ask for pills, but the price had to be increased by 50% according to the highest price of the Wanbao Tower, and the quantity was only 1/5 of the previous practice. Regarding this result, the representatives of several sects also smiled bitterly in their hearts, but they had to accept the distribution of Chunyang Palace. After all, compared with the Ghostine sect and the Ghost sect, at least they could get pills. Even if the price was a little higher and the quantity was a little less, they would not go back empty-handed. The most unlucky ones were the sect led by the Ghostine sect, who had targeted Yang Chun at that time. Basically, their trip was in vain. Even if the price was multiplied by 10, they would not be able to get a single pill, let alone a slightly more expensive pill. But even though they knew they couldn't get anything, they had no choice but to come. If he didn't come this time because of his face, then he would probably never be able to get any pills from Grandmaster Yang's hands in the future. No matter what, she had to give him enough face. Of course, This was also the first step to slowly repairing their relationship. Even if they couldn't buy the pills refined by Grandmaster Yang, they could still consider the pills refined by Grandmaster Yang's personal disciple, Chunmei, and at a high price. Isn't a relationship formed through little by little contact? If it didn't work this time, there would be a next time. There would always be a day when things would improve. Relatively speaking, it was relatively easy for those super sects whose golden immortals had already died, such as the Great Wilderness sect. Although the death of the Golden Immortal Grandmaster had a great impact on the status of their sect, it was also because of this that when they dealt with Yang Chun before, they didn't even have a right to express their opinions. Without the right to express their opinions, they naturally didn't participate in the selection. If they didn't participate in the selection, they would not offend Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace, which was a blessing and misfortune. When these sect representatives came to ask for pills, Chunyang Palace did not deliberately make things difficult for them. They still promised 1/5 of the previous quantity, and the price was also based on the highest price at the auction of Wanbao Tower, which was cheaper than the 4 sects of Taoism. To be honest, this was a very sincere price, and these sects were naturally overjoyed. Compared with the depression of the sect, the Palace Master of Chunyang Palace and Grandmaster Wang Yong were the happiest. Grandmaster Wang Yong's resentment of being sealed in the Joint Command Conference had also been vented. He was not allowed to express any opinions in the Joint Command Conference before. Now, not only did he have an important seat, but the Island Master would also solemnly ask for his opinion on some matters. His status had improved a lot. The Palace Master was not happy that the major sect had come to seek cooperation to repair the relationship. He was happy that Chunyang Palace was getting closer and closer to the strength of a super sect. In the past, Chunyang Palace was not valued because the strength of the sect was poor. However, under the leadership of Yang Chun, a disciple who made all the core high-level members of Chunyang Palace satisfied, he first married Fairy Qingyin and brought tens of thousands of disciples of all levels, then brought several Xian immortal masters, and finally accepted the remaining disciples of Shintian sect. A few decades ago, Chunyang Palace was already the strongest first-class sect, except for those super sect. The reason why it had not been able to enter the ranks of the super sect was that its top combat effectiveness was still insufficient, and the other was that its foundation was insufficient. These two problems had recently begun to gradually disappear. As Chunyang Palace gained more and more loyalty from the disciples of Shintian sect, the problem of the foundation was basically no longer a big problem after receiving the huge inheritance of Shintian sect. As for the top combat effectiveness, their own disciple Yang Chun put down 6 golden immortal masters with his bare hands. What else was there to say? If this was not enough, Gong Sunling, who had the Mountain River geographical map, at least would not be worse than any golden immortal of a super sect. Not to mention the combat effectiveness of the younger generation. Except for a few core high-level members themselves, none of Yang Chun's pro-disciples were easy to deal with. Even those friends of Yang Chun, Shi Kuei, Xie Sha, Ho Yun, Old Tree Demon Lan Ning, Du Qian, Shanghai Feng, Wang Yuan, and so on, all swallowed Tian Yuan pills. Any one of them would be famous in the future. After occupying the vast territory of Shintian sect, even the last bottleneck that limited the development of Chunyang Palace disappeared without a trace. Chunyang Palace in the mortal world had already grown into a behemoth, and now Chunyang Palace had a steady stream of reserves. The above did not count the core cave residents of the sect, which could be said to be the safest in the spiritual world. The cave residents in the belly of the great principal golden immortal earth dragon could guarantee that even if several major sects joined forces, they might not be able to break it. With so many advantages gathered together, if the pure Yang Palace could not steadily enter the ranks of the super sects, then what the head of the palace did was too much of a failure. Everything that the palace master thought of seemed to be related to Yang Chun. In other words, no matter how many other things there were, as long as there was a disciple like Yang Chun, it was better than anything else. Master Yang's 8th grade Lingji Mushroom Jade Pill was finally released. After the news was confirmed, the morale of the entire spiritual world directly soared. No matter how the major sects accepted the retribution for their previous wrong decision, the cultivators of the spiritual realm now had one more eighth revolution pill refinement master, an extremely powerful life-saving medicine. This was simply good news that could boost the morale of the cultivators of the spiritual realm in the war against Zhao clan. All the cultivators were full of confidence. It could be said that the war against the Zhao family had begun to favor the side of the Joint Command. Chapter 2375. According to this trend, as long as it continued, the balance of the war would tilt to the side of the spiritual world sooner or later. No matter how strong the Zhao family was, they were now trapped in the demon realm and had to face the harassment of powerful demon beasts. Their strength was always being consumed. The longer the time dragged on, the weaker the Zhao family would be. All the cultivators in the Joint Command were very optimistic, feeling that victory was slowly coming to them. The Zhao family had fallen into a desperate situation. They were forced to compete with Gong Sunling in the refinement of the demon realm. They believed that when the demon realm was completely refined by the two, it would be the beginning of the decisive battle. The Zhao family would not attack at this time because the golden immortal experts of the Zhao family were all injured by Zhou Sheng's self-explosion when they destroyed the Xintian sect. They didn't have a powerful alchemist like Grandmaster Yang, so it was naturally impossible for them to have any effective healing pills. Before these golden immortal experts recovered, the Zhao family would not make a move. Almost all the cultivators in the spiritual world who paid attention to the war situation of the Zhao family thought so. So everyone was very relaxed. Gong Sunling's Mountain River geographical map had become recognized as the best training ground at this stage. In the buffer zone between the Zhao family and the buffer zone, there were countless real enemies for them to kill. If they really couldn't beat the enemy, as long as they could run back to their respective territories, they would be safe and sound. It was unknown how many people were now concentrated in this area, taking advantage of this good opportunity to improve themselves on the real battlefield. The major sects also arranged for their disciples to gain experience in this place. On the one hand, they could really kill the enemy and accumulate credit. On the other hand, it was indeed a great opportunity to train. After this decisive battle, who knew if there would be a better opportunity than this in the future? One had to know that the training ground already existed in name. It would no longer exist in the future. And in the demon realm, there were two experts' spatial magic treasures to be divided. When the time came, would they have to enter other people's magic treasures to train? Since they were fighting against real experts of the Zhao family, casualties were naturally inevitable. However, as long as the cultivators were not fools and didn't choose cultivators who were not at the same level as them, they could basically still achieve the purpose of training. If they were injured, as long as they didn't try to be brave and return to their own territory in time, there would be no danger. Those who died were basically those who couldn't see the situation clearly or fell for the other party's tricks. Naturally, there were also casualties among the Zhao clan's cultivators. They seemed to be training with the same mindset. For both sides to make such a move on the eve of the decisive battle, it really made people somewhat speechless. The Joint Command side was also very relaxed. After letting go of those greedy thoughts, all parties found that the situation was really suddenly clear. There were no longer those things that should not have been there. Everything showed that the destruction of the Zhao family was already within reach. Ghosting's sect, Gosoul's sect, and the other sects did not hold back either, especially when they knew that the golden immortal grandmasters of their respective sect had been cured by Yang Chun with an 8th revolution Ganoderma mushroom jade pill. They had no objection. Those golden immortal experts were only trapped in the Mountain River geographical map and could not come out. They were not dead. In the buffer zone battles on both sides, there were often cultivators who saw their figures. This was also good. Without those unrealistic ambitions, the 6 golden immortal experts could focus on fighting the enemy. Under their concentration, their efficiency had increased by a lot. A few sect masters were worried at first and specially entered the Mountain River geographical map to take a look. But unfortunately, they did not see a few golden immortal grandmasters in the Mountain River geographical map. Instead, They saw them in the buffer zone with the Zhao family. No one knew that these golden immortals and those sect masters were not in the same world in the Mountain River geographical map. If they wanted to meet in the Mountain River geographical map, unless all the sect masters ascended, the 6 golden immortals seemed to have accepted their fate. Unless they stayed in the buffer zone, as long as they returned to the Mountain River geographical map, the 6 of them would appear alone in an area. There was no one else. This should be Yang Qin's punishment for them. After these 6 guys thought about it, they did not think too much about it. Anyway, as long as they did not want to die, it was just a small punishment for offending people. It was too easy. Everything seemed to be on the right track, but suddenly, a change happened. All the cultivators thought that the decisive battle would be decades later, but the fact was not so. Suddenly, the space magic treasures controlled by both sides collided violently again. This was not the initiative of Gong Sunling, but the action of the Dragon Clan expert of the Zhao family. Gong Sunling was passively fighting, and in a hurry, she also had to take care of the cultivators who were in the buffer zone, so she suffered a big loss at the beginning. Originally, the refining area of Gong Sunling was smaller than that of the opponent. Fortunately, she had the backing of the entire demon realm and the heavenly tribulation of the 2 realms, so she was still evenly matched in the head-on collision. It was just that when the Zhao family launched their attack, they did not care about the life and death of the cultivators in the middle buffer zone. All their enemies were in a nest, and their momentum and mentality were much stronger than that of Gong Sunling. As for Gong Sunling, when she found that something was wrong, she first had to take care of the cultivators who were in the middle of the trial, so she did not have the upper hand in the beginning. Boom, 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 in a violent sound, it was still the same kind of movement that was like a landslide. If it were not for the fact that Gong Sunling had taken the initiative to send the cultivators far away from the edge of the buffer zone, even a Heaven Immortal expert would be squeezed into a meat paste in such a collision. Countless cultivators watched the scene from afar, dumbfounded. They did not understand why the Zhao family would suddenly attack at this time. When they calmed down and thought about it carefully, they understood the difficulties of the Zhao family. According to the previous development trend, the cultivators of the spirit realm would have the upper hand. Although the Zhao family had refined the spirit realm many years earlier, their speed was not as fast as Gong Sunling's geographical map of mountains and rivers. As long as one was not a fool, he or she knew that giving Gong Sunling time meant that Gong Sunling's advantage would grow. On the contrary, the earlier they launched the decisive battle, the greater the advantage the Zhao family would have. The only thing that they did not understand was that the other party did not care about the life and death of the cultivators of the Zhao family in the buffer zone. When they came up, they attacked indiscriminately, which was really puzzling. Fortunately, Gong Sunling's geographical map of mountains and rivers had a deep foundation. Overall, she still surpassed the opponent. After snatching back the last cultivator who could be snatched back, she finally stopped worrying and began to recklessly collide with the opponent. This time, it was really an accident, so unexpected that Gong Sunling even snatched back most of the cultivators of the Zhao family in the buffer zone. For the time being, she could not understand the mentality of the other party, but Gong Sunling still pulled herself together and fought with the enemy. Chapter 2376. The demon realm was a world of the same level as the spiritual realm, so it was born to be a level higher than the demon realm. However, the Mountain River geographical map did not fall behind because of this. Just the living soil that Yang Chan relied on the demonic energy to accelerate was 5 times the size of the original demon realm. Gong Sunling didn't even have to compete with the opponent in terms of quality. She could crush the opponent with quantity. In the collision, the space of the 2 sides constantly collided, constantly penetrated each other, and constantly refined and absorbed each other. The Mountain River geographical map absorbed a lot of space of the demon realm, and the other party also absorbed a lot of land of the demon realm. Yang Chun suddenly realized that in a short period of time, due to the accumulation of a large amount of demonic qi in the living soil, it was unlikely that cultivators could live and cultivate normally in that space. In other words, that space was actually still a barren land until now. The reason was very simple. because the concentration of demonic energy was too high, and it was impossible to reduce a part of it to a suitable concentration by diluting it with a mountain river geographical map. However, wasn't there a ready-made opportunity for the other party to use the demon realm to help dilute it? The third primordial spirit immediately began to control the colliding part and replaced it with that part of the living soil space. When colliding, it showed a flaw, almost like sending the space over. It took the initiative to give some of the demon realm living soil to the other party to refine. As for Gong Sunling and the three dragon spirits, they went all out and devoted themselves to refining the space of the demon realm. As expected, the enemy was fooled and suddenly found that Gong Sunling seemed to have signs of instability and control at the edge of the collision area. How could she not seize this opportunity to strengthen herself and weaken the enemy? She immediately began to refine it with all her might. Yang Chun and Gong Sunling had adapted to the aura of the demon realm for many years. It could be said that they were quite used to the strong demonic energy. Even if it had an impact, the impact on their current cultivation was not very big. As long as they had not reached the core area of the demon realm, everything was very simple. However, it was clear that this was the first time the other party had come into contact with the extremely dense demonic energy. At first, the other party didn't think much of it. However, after absorbing it for a while, he immediately realized that something was amiss. It should be known that the devil chi that gave birth to the living soil came from the core of the devil realm, the part of the devil chi sea that was connected to the immortal realm. The devil chi was so thick that it was even turned into liquid and solid by the powerful devil chi. Even if the living soil absorbed and solidified it, the density of the devil chi was not fake. This level of devil chi had given Yang Chun a headache in the past, and that was after Yang Chun had refined the entrance to the devil realm and had been influenced by devil chi for many years. It was obvious that this was the first time the other party had come into contact with demonic chi of this degree. In fact, it was his first time coming into contact with demonic chi, and he immediately suffered. Earlier on, because Yang Chun had deliberately exposed a flaw, the other party had absorbed and refined it as quickly as possible. Yang Chun directly sent all the bordering parts of more than hundreds of thousands of miles over. When the other party was refining, Yang Chun also consciously suppressed the eruption of devil chi. Only when the other party had successfully refined it did Yang Chun's third primordial spirit release the suppression, allowing the devil chi to wreak havoc mercilessly. In an instant, hundreds of thousands of miles of land was covered with thick, viscous, liquid-like devil chi, and the other party's movements suddenly became sluggish. The landslides and cracks in the bordering areas between the two sides suddenly disappeared, leaving only a calm mountain peak. Strangely, all the mountain peaks were black in color, and a thick demonic liquid was rapidly flowing from one side of the geographical map to the other side. Wherever the black torrent went, it was like a great flood that had not been seen in 1,000 years, destroying everything. Anything that stood in the way of the black torrent was mercilessly submerged and then disappeared strangely. The impact of the rich devil chi was so great that the dragon clan expert of the Zhao family had to put down everything and fight with all his strength. He even stopped the work of refining the demon realm in other directions. Gong Sunling seized this rare opportunity and mobilized the power of all the cultivators in the geographical map, including the power of the disciples of the sect who had been training in the geographical map, to refine the demon realm with all his strength. In the past, Gong Sunling did not dare to borrow the power of these disciples, for fear that they would discover the abnormality inside. However, it was a pity that she could not borrow the power of tens of millions of experts of all levels. Now, she finally took advantage of the collision between the two sides to openly borrow the power of these cultivators. Even if those cultivators noticed that something was wrong, they could push the blame to the experts of the Zhao family. The collision between the two sides could not be without any impact, so it was normal for them to feel some discomfort. From the time the other party came into contact with the devil chi to slowly regaining control and eliminating the influence, it took more than 10 days. During these 10 days, The third primordial spirit controlled the devil chi to invade thousands of miles into the other party's territory. Invading thousands of miles on the front line of hundreds of thousands of miles, this territory was simply unimaginably large. When the Dragon Clan experts of the Zhao family found that they could only temporarily eliminate the influence of the devil chi, but could not suppress and control it, they decisively gave up this area. This territory, which was almost comparable to the territory of a big sect, was given to Gong Sunling. Of course, the third primordial spirit would not be polite. Such a big gift, if it was refined normally, it would probably take some time. Since the other party had sent it, it would not hesitate to accept it. This area had been contaminated with devil chi, which was equivalent to being completely assimilated by the aura of the demon realm. For the mountain river geographical map of the entire demon realm, refining it was effortless. In a short month of confrontation, the geographical map of the mountain river once again gained the upper hand, and the other party once again stopped attacking and turned to defense. It may be that the devil chi made the other party a little uncomfortable, and he could not maintain further active attacks. Gong Sunling was somewhat unreasonable. The other party took the initiative to retreat, but Gong Sunling turned the tables and attacked frantically. Since he had the upper hand, he would not let this advantage disappear easily until he had enough benefits. This time, the Zhao family did not let Gong Sunling expand the advantage, but retreated significantly, leaving a large area of the demon realm space that had not been refined, but he disappeared without a trace. Yang Chun had no good way to deal with this. Unless both sides refined the entire demon realm, the other party would always have a place to hide. What he should do at the moment was to try his best to refine more demon realm and grab more resources. However, Yang Chun also found some very suspicious things from his collision, and he was puzzled. If it weren't for the geographical map of the mountain river, Yang Chun would even suspect that this was a big trap of the other party. How could there be a reason to ignore the life and death of their own disciples before the decisive battle? Moreover, there was a more obvious phenomenon. That is, since the first contact between the two sides, the geographical map of the mountain river hardly collected a single monster. Chapter 2377. The demon beasts that were affected by the pure demon aura were unique creatures in the demon realm and were also the culprits of the demonic tribulation in the spiritual realm many years ago. The demon beasts without intelligence were very similar to the crazy demon beasts of the demonic tribulation, except that their cultivation level was higher. Like the crazy demon beasts, as long as they entered the mountain river geographical map, they began to face the tribulation from the mortal world and ascended to the spiritual realm. Basically, all of them had active intelligence and became real demon cultivators. Relying on this channel alone, there were no less than millions of demon beasts in the mountain river geographical map who became demon cultivators, but compared with the huge number of demon beasts in the demon realm, it was just a drop in the ocean. The problem was here. When Gong Sunling began to refine the demon realm, she could also directly collect the demon beasts in the space into the mountain river geographical map. But after the first collision with the master of the Zhao family, those demon beasts seemed to have disappeared without a trace overnight, and not many were collected. It was not that there was no demon beasts, but there were only a few that slipped through the net occasionally. Most of the demon beasts seemed to have been collected in advance, which was really strange. In this case, there seemed to be only one possibility. That was, all the demon beasts had been collected one step ahead of time. Gong Sunling's mountain river geographical map could have such an effect, and the spatial magic weapon refined by the other party should have a similar function. As long as one entered the other party's spatial magic weapon, they basically became the other party's slave, especially these demon beasts without intelligence, which are almost the easiest to control. Like Gong Sunling, if she wanted to control the cultivators in the mountain river geographical map, at least her cultivation level must be higher than the other party. Otherwise, at most, she could only imprison them, but not control them. The strength of the master of the Dragon Clan was at the peak of the golden immortal realm, so it was easy for him to control the demon beasts in the demon realm. Yang Chun had now begun to suspect that the demon beasts that appeared in the spiritual realm during the demonic tribulation were simply collected into the spatial magic weapon by the master of the Zhao family and then released into the spiritual realm. Otherwise, they would not maintain that kind of crazy attack. Later, in the calamity of magic medicine, the magic medicine was simply a means to control the demon beasts in the spatial magic treasure. Otherwise, why would the demon beasts not attack when they smelled the magic medicine? The ultimate goal of the Zhao family was to refine the three realms. The greatest use of the demonic tribulation in the spiritual realm was to taint the spiritual realm with the aura of the demon realm. However, the demon realm had not been refined yet, so what was the point of being tainted with the aura of the demon realm? On the other hand, those demon beasts had been domesticated by the experts of the Dragon Clan in the spatial magic treasure for a period of time, so it was true that they were contaminated with the aura of the spatial magic treasure. This was in line with the characteristics of making it easier to refine the spiritual world in the future. This was the only explanation that made sense. Yangchen had been busy with other things before, so he hadn't noticed this. Only when he communicated with his third primordial spirit again did he realize the crux of the matter. As for the fact that the Dragon Clan experts of the Zhao family did not distinguish between friend and foe when they attacked, this made Yang Chun even more puzzled. The matter of the demonic beasts could still be roughly deduced, but they didn't even let their own people go. What was going on? Could it be that something had happened within the Zhao family? Did the experts of the Dragon Clan and the Zhao family not deal with each other? After thinking about it, it seemed that this was the only possibility. Otherwise, it would be impossible to explain why the experts of the Dragon Clan attacked indiscriminately. At this point, the direction of Yang Chen's guess was correct. There was indeed a problem within the Zhao family. However, the problem was not with the cultivators of the Zhao family fighting in the buffer zone on the front line, but with Yanglan. Among the core high-level members of the Zhao family, only one had not been secretly controlled by Yanglan, but this did not prevent Yanglan from secretly controlling the Zhao family. Through the experts under his control, Yanglan arranged a series of actions that were in line with his interests. Perhaps God's arrangement was to make the Zhao family unlucky. They never thought that the family would send experts to attack the Xintian sect. After paying the price of the casualties of the family's disciples, they brought back a small cultivator who they thought was a chess piece against the Xintian sect. Instead, he would become a big problem within the Zhao family. What was even worse was that at this point, they still hadn't noticed it. The sudden attack of the experts of the Dragon Clan was not the intention of the Zhao family patriarch, but Yanglan. Of course, the explanation for the high-level members of the Zhao family was a tentative attack to understand the strength of the sect in the spiritual world so that they could make corresponding arrangements. The deeper purpose was to blatantly eliminate the dissidents. The people of the Zhao family would never know that those who were killed by the experts of the Dragon Clan were all loyal to the Zhao family, who seemed to be stubborn in Yanglan's eyes. They were also the confidants of the last high-level members of the family who had not yet been controlled by him. The remaining high-level members of the Zhao family were very careful. Yanglan could not easily succeed, which also led to Yanglan not being able to complete the full control of the Zhao family. Yanglan, this guy, was absolutely ruthless when he was ruthless. Since he couldn't be used by himself, then he was an enemy, and there would be no exception. Don't look at how the Zhao family was strictly Yanglan's savior, but Yanglan never put this kindness in his heart. This innately cold fellow could never change his true nature. After discovering that control was hopeless, Yanglan began to intentionally or unintentionally arrange for people to take turns to go to the front line to gain experience. The cultivators of the major sect were gaining experience. Wasn't the Zhao family the same? Then after waiting for a few rounds, when it was the turn of the people in the room to go out, Yanglan suddenly ordered the experts of the Dragon Clan to launch an attack regardless of the enemy. The effect was very outstanding. The people of the Zhao family instantly lost 70% to 80%. The news from the feedback from the experts of the Dragon Clan was that Gong Sunling suddenly launched an attack, and the rescue was too late, which brought casualties to the disciples of the sect. Not only that, The other party's demonic energy was so powerful that the experts of the Dragon Clan lost hundreds of thousands of miles of territory. The only remaining force that was not controlled by Yanglan was greatly damaged, and the right to speak among the high-level members of the Zhao family was also much smaller. The world was really so realistic. When there was power, the voice would be loud, and when there was no power, it would be much quieter. Yanglan couldn't directly kill that person. That was the head of the second branch, second only to the patriarch, and he must not be taken lightly. Anyway, after this time, the other party's power was greatly damaged, and he would slowly target him in the future. It wouldn't be long before the entire Zhao family would no longer be the Zhao family, and it would change its surname to Yang. Although he didn't have the kind of majestic style that stood in front of people, Yanglan, who had experienced several escapes from death, could disguise himself better than anyone else. Even if he now controlled more than 80% of the power of the Zhao family, he was still the little cultivator surnamed Yang, who was grateful for the life-saving grace of the Zhao family. From time to time, he would give some ideas to the main family, which was his repayment to the main family. Chapter 2378. Although this attack was to eliminate the dissidents, Yanglan also had reasons to attack. One of the main ones was that Yang Chun had become an 8th grade alchemist master and refined the 8th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill. This news was obtained by Yanglan from one of his puppets. The puppet was a high-level member of a monster race. It was secretly controlled by Yanglan, but it had never been found out. At any time, there were always privileged people. Some high-level members of the sect thought that they would never have the chance to contact Yanglan, so they would never be controlled by Yanglan. When the entire spiritual world began to secretly search from the top, this guy had just been hit by Yanglan's means and became a puppet. With this kind of high-level identity, the cultivators below would never dare to doubt him easily. When he made it clear that he did not want to be insulted by the inspection, those cultivators naturally did not dare to do anything to him. In fact, every sect has such an existence. It depends on whether he is aware of it or not. Just like Yang Chun of the Chunyang Palace, no one would believe that he would be controlled by Yang Lan and become a puppet. However, Yang Chun was very conscious. He would take the initiative to let people check. With the cover of the virtual sea of consciousness, no one could find that he had been related to Yang Lan. However, not every cultivator had the ability of Yang Chun. Every sect master personally took the lead in the inspection. In this case, there were still some people who were unwilling to be inspected. They felt that being inspected was an insult to themselves. Therefore, there were several high-level members of each sect who had not been inspected. Among the high-level members who had not been inspected, the one in a monster race happened to be Yanglan's puppet. After experiencing the destruction of tens of thousands of puppets before, Yanglan did things more covertly. He no longer controlled these puppets to do things, but relied on them to be his eyes and ears, and knew some information about the Joint Command. This was how the news of Yang Chun was leaked. Fortunately, Yang Chun's fight against 6 Golden Immortal Masters was not leaked, because Yanglan was busy with other things at that time. When he wanted to inquire, everyone was shocked by the 8th grade medicinal pill. There was actually an 8th grade alchemist in the spiritual world, and it was Yang Chun. After Yanglan learned the news, his heart was filled with joy and anger. He was angry that Yang Chun, the son of his own tenant, who he had always looked down upon, was much higher than his own achievements. How could the narrow-minded Yanglan not be jealous? How could he not be angry? He was happy that Yang Chun was already secretly under his control. No matter how high Yang Chun's achievements were, he was still his pawn, his puppet. He could control Yang Chun to do whatever he wanted at any time. Fortunately, Yanglan, who was jealous, was rational and knew what an 8th grade alchemist master meant in the spiritual world. Under such circumstances, he could not easily expose the puppet Yang Chun. Otherwise, everything he had done would have been for naught. According to Yang Chun's development speed, it was not impossible for him to become a 9th grade alchemist in the future. When he thought that as long as he controlled Yang Chun to fly to the immortal world, he would soon be able to enjoy the happiness of the 9 Revolutions Golden Dan, Yanglan couldn't help but show a happy smile on his face. This was a treasure. and it couldn't be easily damaged. Fortunately, Yang Chen's status was high enough that no one noticed that he was a puppet. Of course, this was also related to the arrangements made by Yang Lan. He shaped Yang Chen into a life and death enemy of the Zhao family. Naturally, no one would doubt Yang Chen. Yang Lan thought that all this was his own credit. He didn't know that Yang Chen was secretly laughing at the group of Yang Lan's spiritual awareness imprint in his virtual sea of consciousness. What Yang Lan wanted to know from him was all what Yang Chen wanted him to know. What he didn't want him to know, Yang Lan couldn't touch it at all. Successfully controlling 80% of the power of the Zhao family, and also controlling Yang Chen, the 8th grade alchemist, Yang Lan began to have ideas about the golden immortal masters of the Zhao family. Those golden immortal masters were still injured. Although the injuries were not enough to affect the battle, the injuries were still injuries, and there would always be an impact. If he could get the 8 revolutions Lingji mushroom jade pill from Yang Chen, he would be able to cure those golden immortals easily. If he controlled Yang Chen, there would be a continuous supply of 8 revolutions medicinal pills. But the golden immortal masters have not yet been controlled by Yang Lan, which was a pity. The good news was that those golden immortal masters were injured, and it would be easier to have ideas about them. In addition, the master of the Dragon Clan was also under his control. If the two sides cooperate, it was likely to take down these golden immortal masters and make them his own puppets. The bad news was that the golden immortal masters were golden immortal masters. If the timing was not good, I am afraid that it would bring disaster to himself. Not every time he had such good luck, he could control every golden immortal master like he did with the master of the Dragon Clan. Of course, as long as there was a master of the Dragon Clan, he could basically be in an invincible position. At least even if he failed, he still had a way out. Entering the spatial magic treasure of the master of the Dragon Clan was the safest place. Even Yang Lan found that he had another way out. That was Yang Chen's side. Gong Sunling's Mountain River geographical map was a powerful treasure that was comparable to the spatial magic treasure of the master of the Dragon Clan. As long as he controlled Yang Chen, the Mountain River geographical map would belong to Yang Lan sooner or later. Both spatial magic treasures were under his control. Basically, Yang Lan could already conclude that the spiritual world in the future would definitely be his own. Whether it was the master of the Dragon Clan refining the demon realm or Gong Sunling refining the demon realm, the nature was the same. He indirectly controlled the demon realm. As long as he controlled the entire demon realm, would controlling the entire spiritual world be far away? Yang Lan had been in the Zhao family for so long. How could he not find out the ultimate goal of the Zhao family? The Zhao family had prepared for so long, paid so much hard work, paid so many resources, and paid so many children's lives. Wasn't it just to control the 3 realms? Unfortunately, the Zhao family did not count Yang Lan's head. Everything, in the end, was a wedding dress for Yang Lan. In the previous collision, the master of the Zhao family had been sure that the demon realm had been refined by Gong Sunling, which also meant that as long as Gong Sunling was willing, it was not a problem to control the mortal world. When the spiritual world was also controlled by the master of the Dragon Clan, or Gong Sunling, then the mortal world and the spiritual world were all in Yang Lan's hands. At that time, he would ascend to the immortal world with the power to control the 2 worlds. Yang Chen would become a 9th grade alchemist master, and the immortal executioner stage would also be controlled by Yang Lan. It would not be a dream to sweep the immortal world, unify the 3 realms, become the lord of the 3 realms, the real Jade Emperor, and all the cultivators would be at his feet. What kind of prestige was that? Maybe it was time to use the big killer weapon of the Zhao family to hit the spiritual world hard. Yang Lan looked forward to a better future in his heart, and at the same time began to take every step under his feet. Chapter 2379. The Zhao family has been secretly ambushed in the spiritual world for no less than hundreds of thousands of years, even longer than some big sect. The scale of the subsidiary sect developed secretly in the spiritual world has exceeded that of any super sect. The sect cultivators and industries related to the Zhao family are all over the spiritual world. In such a situation, even if the Zhao family had only made some arrangements out of security concerns from the very beginning, it was enough to make people shocked. What's more, as early as a long time ago, the Zhao family had already begun to plot against the demon realm and the monster realm. How could they not make arrangements as early as possible? Yang Chun rescued the dragon puppet, Old Dragon Sea, Old Bug, and the others. Those large-scale sealing arrays were deliberately arranged by the Zhao family. It was a prerequisite preparation for refining the entire spiritual world. Even with this kind of arrangement, how could a Zhao family not have any backup means? Now that the Zhao family was isolated in the monster realm and could not leave, how could the Zhao family not have any preparation? However, it was not the point of life and death of the Zhao family. The Zhao family would never use this last means. Their biggest and most fundamental purpose was to refine the three realms. If this means was used, perhaps the cultivators of the spiritual world would lose at least 99% or even 100%. This was not in line with the fundamental interests of the Zhao family. This arrangement was not found out by Yang Lan, but he guessed it based on the way the Zhao family acted before. After coming to this conclusion of speculation, he went to explore consciously, and then when the patriarch accidentally spilled the beans, he found out the place where the secret was stored. The patriarch of the Zhao family didn't seem to think there was any big problem with this. He didn't have the thought of killing the family secret after it was known by an outsider. The place where this secret was stored was the top secret of the Zhao family. It belonged to the kind of top secret place that even the patriarch himself was not allowed to approach. There were several ancestors of the Zhao family who had not ascended to heaven guarding it. Unless the patriarch of the Zhao family came in person, it was impossible to enter. Such a secret was obviously the real core secret of the Zhao family. It was even more important than the golden immortal masters arranged by the immortal world. Perhaps by mastering this secret, he could really control the Zhao family. For the sake of this secret, Yang Chun had spent a long time arranging it. He had sent people to infiltrate and carefully probed. Because the master of the Zhao family who guarded this secret had a very high cultivation base, Yang Lan had to focus on this matter. Even the feat of Yang Chun fighting 6 golden immortal masters alone some time ago could not be known from his high-level puppet. After a lot of effort, Yang Lan finally succeeded in making one of the Zhao family ancestors his own puppet. When he saw the secret through the old ancestor's eyes, he was ecstatic. His efforts over such a long period of time had not been in vain. That secret was truly worthy of his efforts, and it was also worth looking forward to. However, looking forward to it, the rational Yang Lan did not want to use this secret one day. Once that technique was used, it could practically destroy most of the spiritual realm. This kind of method of destroying jade and stone was not really necessary to be used at the last moment. Yang Lan did not want himself or the Zhao family to use this from the bottom of his heart. It was best to use conventional means to solve all the problems. That was the way to maximize the benefits. If he really destroyed most of the spiritual realm and destroyed all the cultivators, even if he really got the spiritual realm, what was the point of that? Even the cultivators were killed, and there were certainly not many aborigines left. Only a few of his own people would be left. At that time, Yang Lan estimated that he would be truly alone. Sometimes it was better to die than to live alone. But then again, it was precisely because of such a reassuring guarantee that the Zhao family could still maintain a strong fighting spirit in any unfavorable situation. Even now, seeing that the strength of the Joint Commander was getting stronger and stronger, they still maintained their own rhythm and did not waver. Except for Yang Lan's decision to let the Dragon Clan Master kill a group of dissidents. Basically, the Zhao family did not care how much territory Gong Sunling could grab. In the same way, this secret also gave Yang Lan a great confidence guarantee. The secret was not only related to the Zhao family, but also to the Dragon Clan Master. It was also related to many previous sects in the spiritual realm. Once it was launched, even the Dragon Clan Master at the peak of the Golden Immortal could not stop it and could not resist it. This gave Yang Lan the capital to control the Dragon Clan Master. Yang Lan did not need to use this ultimate weapon to speed up the process. so he could rest assured and boldly let the Zhao family patriarch play and continue to act according to the original plan. What Yang Lan had to do was to try his best to let all the people of the Zhao family twist into a rope, work together to fight against the joint commander, and finally reap the benefits. Don't stand out, don't try to be brave, sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. The happy days were beckoning to him not far away. In contrast to the leisurely and happy Yang Lan, a group of high-level members of the Joint Command were nervous. What was the matter with the sudden attack of the Zhao family? What was the arrangement behind it? What was the meaning of the retreat after a month? Before they figured it out, they were all nervous and defensive. Fortunately, Gong Sunling was treated in time during the sudden attack. More than half of the hundreds of thousands of cultivators who were practicing at that time were snatched back, and the loss was less than 10,000 people. This was enough to let the high-level members breathe a sigh of relief. As long as the loss was not big, everything else was fine. As for the injuries and disabilities, this was no longer a big problem. After the high-level members carefully understood the details, they were all in a cold sweat. Fortunately, Gong Sunling controlled it in time. Otherwise, the loss this time could make the entire Joint Command cry. At this time, thinking about the previous actions of the Golden Immortal Masters of the Ghostine sect, it seemed even more incomprehensible. If they really let the 6 Golden Immortal Masters succeed at that time, when the incident happened, everyone must be fighting for the control of the Mountain River geographical map. Under the restraint of each other, it was estimated that half of the hundreds of thousands of disciples could come back. This was a unanimous thought of all the high-level members of a Joint Command, especially the Ghostine sect, Ghost sect, and other sects. They were in a cold sweat. There were no less than 400,000 people in their 6 sects who participated in the experience. If Gong Sunling held a grudge in her heart, it was estimated that none of these disciples would come back. At that time, the sect masters would directly cry and faint on the spot. There was never a moment when they felt that their own Golden Immortal Master was so hateful. Chapter 2380. In line with the concerns of the joint high-level leaders, Yang Chun was also surprised. The sudden attack of the Zhao family was a bit inexplicable. He couldn't guess what the Zhao family wanted to do. However, what the Zhao family wanted to do had little effect on Yang Chun. As long as Yang Chun and Gong Sunling persisted in their own pace, Yang Chun firmly believed that his side would be able to hold on to the final victory. This was not only because of Yang Chun's confidence in his own cultivation, but also in Gong Sunling's geographical map of Mountain River. Of course, more importantly, it was because of Brother Li Cheng's confidence. Since Yang Chun found a way to refine the Devil Realm, Brother Li Cheng had extraordinary confidence in Yang Chun. This confidence was passed on to Yang Chun, which made Yang Chun even more confident. In addition, Yang Chun had many expert friends. Lin Jingyuan, Ao Lan, and Long Quang were already real Golden Immortals. His biggest support was Madame Bai and more than 1,000 experts, all of whom were at the level of true immortals. In times of crisis, they would definitely be able to turn the tide. Therefore, Yang Chun had never worried that he would fail. What he wanted to know now was why everything in front of him, the plot of the Zhao family, the disaster of the 3 realms, did not happen in his previous life. Perhaps it was because no one in his previous life knew that this would happen. The Zhao clan was very well hidden and had never appeared in front of any cultivators. Or it could be said that even if they appeared, no one knew who they were or what they were hiding. Naturally, there was no way to understand or even guard against them. In that kind of safe and undiscovered situation, the Zhao family did not need to take the risk to launch their own arrangements in advance. As long as they followed the plan of their ancestors step by step, everything could be under their control. Everything that happened in this life seemed to have happened under his influence. The Zhao family in the mortal world was discovered by Yang Chun himself. Perhaps it was because of his rising reputation in the alchemy circle that the Zhao family wanted to recruit him. If it was him in his previous life, the Zhao family would probably not pay any attention to him if he knelt in front of the gate of the Zhao family's manor. Even if he managed to enter the Zhao clan's manor, it would be impossible for him to escape under the double lock of the powerful devil sealing formation and the profound dragon of a grade 4 earthly immortal. At the end of the day, it was precisely because he possessed many things in this life that he did not possess in his previous life that led to an uncontrollable variable in the Zhao family's plan. This caused everything to have to be rushed ahead of schedule, which led to the series of events that happened in this life. However, Yang Chun wasn't arrogant to the point of thinking that he was the key to everything. In reality, Yang Chun had long since understood that everything was Big Brother Li Cheng's ingenious arrangement. His first meeting with the Zhao family was on the island where Brother Li Cheng had arranged to meet him. In other words, it was Brother Li Cheng who had found the whereabouts of the Zhao family's mobile manor and deliberately arranged for him to go there. That was how the Zhao family took the bait. Of course, Yang Chen's own contribution couldn't go unnoticed. If he didn't have such a great reputation and the strength to break the devil sealing formation, the following things wouldn't have happened. In short, everything happened naturally under the circumstances of various coincidences and ingenious arrangements. From this point of view, the arrangement made by Brother Li Cheng to adapt to certain situations was really ingenious. With just a slight push, everything would happen naturally and irreversible. Perhaps this was the real way of a master. After figuring this out, Yang Chun suddenly had an understanding of a certain perspective of his own cultivation. Just like what Brother Li Cheng had done, except for some moments of life and death, he just took advantage of the situation at other times. With a slight push, all the situations were changed because of him. A real master would defeat everything in such a situation without showing his strength. A good fighter had no illustrious achievements. Brother Li Cheng really did it to the extreme. The same was true in cultivation. For example, Yang Chen was still in the process of perfecting the golden body tactics. He had always felt that it was not perfect enough. Every time he cultivated, he would always try to work towards a more perfect direction. But how could it be so easy to perfect the golden body tactics that had integrated so many cultivation methods? Yang Chen felt that he had reached his limit and there was no possibility of moving forward. But from the comparison of his previous life and the things he learned from Brother Li Cheng, Yang Chen suddenly understood why he had to perfect the golden body secret art to the point of perfection in a short period of time, sticking to the current direction and making slight modifications in the areas that he felt were flawed, just like how Big Brother Li Cheng did things. Gently pushing in a certain direction and developing, the golden body incantation would naturally develop to a perfect state, just like how Big Brother Li Cheng did things. In the past, when Yang Chen integrated the golden body tactics, Yang Chen felt that it was like chopping a bamboo branch with great strength. But if he really encountered a hard point and it was beyond his strength, he had to stop. He could not move forward, nor could he retreat, which was very embarrassing. After understanding it, Yang Chen now felt that his cultivation was more like rowing a boat along the river. As long as he gently tapped the boat at a certain bend with a bamboo pole, the boat would naturally flow along the river to the sea. It was effortless and not forced, but the effect was surprisingly good. Tao Junkie, who had been accompanying Yang Chen, watched her husband close his eyes as if he was lost in thought. She was very sensible and guarded him vigilantly, but did not disturb Yang Chen. However, in just a few days, Yang Chen suddenly exuded a very comfortable aura. In the past, as long as she stayed by her husband's side, Tao Junkie would feel very at ease. But this time, Yang Chen gave Tao Junkie a feeling. It seemed that there was a more natural and unpretentious sense of intimacy, which made people want to get close to him from the bottom of their hearts and want to indulge in it. It was really comfortable. Even the murderous aura in Yang Chen's bones, which was brought about by refining the killing intent of so many executioners in the Valley of No Return some time ago, seemed to have disappeared. Yang Chen was Tao Junkie's husband. Even if there was that murderous aura, Tao Junkie would not be afraid, but now that the aura was gone, Tao Junkie liked it even more. Yang Chen finally opened his eyes, and there was a natural smile on his face. Looking at the grass and trees in front of him, it was so pleasing to the eye, not to mention his beautiful concubine, Fairy Junkie, who was smiling like a flower. With such a life, what more could he ask for? In just a few days, his cultivation had unknowingly entered the late stage of Immortal and was close to the peak. His divine sense cultivation, which had not been loosened for a long time, also soared from the late stage of Almighty Immortal to the peak of Almighty Immortal. It should be known that if ordinary cultivators wanted to have such a progress, it would take at least 1,000 years, or even longer, to reach the peak of Almighty Immortal from the late stage of Almighty Immortal, and that was when the spiritual power cultivation had at least reached this realm. But Yang Chun had already reached the peak of Almighty Immortal when he was still in the Xian Immortal realm. Chapter 2381. For a long time, Yang Chun's cultivation had been improving. However, it only improved his spiritual power cultivation. The Heavenly Yuan pill had an unparalleled effect on improving his spiritual power cultivation, but it was relatively limited in improving his state of mind and spiritual awareness. Fortunately, the Heavenly Yuan pill was still the Heavenly Yuan pill. Although the improvement was limited, it had one advantage. That was, the Heavenly Yuan pill would improve his spiritual power cultivation and spiritual awareness cultivation in a balanced manner. When your spiritual power cultivation was promoted to the profound immortal level, your spiritual awareness cultivation would also be promoted to the profound immortal level. But like Yang Chen's family, their spiritual awareness cultivation was far higher than their spiritual power cultivation, so there was nothing they could do to improve their spiritual awareness. The women could only rely on Yang Chen's spiritual awareness dual cultivation with the supreme mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra to slowly improve. But even so, the speed of their improvement was already shocking. Yang Chen did not expect that the method he learned from Big Brother Li Cheng's way of doing things would have such an effect. He just encountered a bottleneck in the integration of the Golden Body secret art. So he tried to learn from Big Brother Li Cheng's method, but he did not expect to have such a surprise. Compared with the small achievement of improving his spiritual power cultivation close to the peak of the profound immortal, the spiritual awareness cultivation reaching the peak of the great principal golden immortal was really worth noting. Now, Yang Chun had greater confidence in defeating the Zhao family. Tao Junkie was the first to feel the change in her husband, and the first to enjoy the joy of promotion with her husband. The first thing Yang Chun did after his realm was stabilized was to dual cultivate with Tao Junkie so that she could also feel his joy. After the two sides collided with each other again, both sides calmed down. However, this peace did not last long, but only 2 months later, some cultivators in the spiritual world found something wrong. It was a small sect in a remote location, not even third-rate, with only a few hundred people. From top to bottom, the strongest one was only in the late Earth Immortal stage, barely able to stand a foothold in the local area, but it was impossible for a small sect to have any big development. Basically, most of these sects could only attach themselves to other big sects and rely on the Meng-yin of the big sect to survive and develop. Their territory was very remote, and there was only one small Earth Immortal level spiritual vein. If it weren't for the fact that there were a lot of indigenous people in the territory, they could still barely maintain it. They were afraid that it would have been like the pure Yang Palace when the Palace Master just ascended. It would be in a precarious situation. The one who realized that something was wrong was the sect master with the highest cultivation in this small sect. His cultivation was low, so he was not qualified to be sent to the realm of monsters. He could only stay in the sect. This was good as well. He didn't have to risk his life. While cultivating, the sect leader suddenly realized that the Earth God Grade Spirit Meridian in his sect seemed to be acting strangely. The spirit chi it provided was insufficient, and it continued to drop. After a month, the entire spirit meridian could no longer provide any spirit chi. The sect leader was taken aback. Without the only Earth God spiritual meridian, their sect would really be destitute. After inspecting it again, the sect leader found another abnormality. Even a mountain defense formation that they used spirit stones to set up lost its effect. One must know that spirit stones could steadily and continuously provide spirit chi to the formation. It was impossible for it to lose spirit chi like the spirit meridian. There was a big problem here. The sect leader was very sensitive. He knew that this was a critical moment in the war between the spiritual realm and the Zhao family. A little abnormality might be a deep conspiracy behind it. Without saying anything, he quickly flew to the nearest super sect on his flying sword at the fastest speed and reported the abnormality in his sect's territory. The super sect who received the news did not dare to neglect it. Everyone knew that this was a critical moment, especially when the other party was fighting with Gong Sun Ling for the realm of monsters. If something went wrong in the spiritual realm, it would make the joint commander cry. The core executives who stayed in the super sect quickly sent the sect elder to check and at the same time reported to the joint commander. When the Xianxian elder arrived, he lowered his head and checked. Without saying anything, he turned around and fled. Fortunately, he had escaped quickly enough to escape this calamity. After rushing back to the sect, he hurriedly reported. The small sect's territory did not have any problems, but it had been refined. As soon as the news came out, the entire joint commander was shocked. Everyone blocked the entrance to the realm of monsters and completely blocked the Zhao family in the realm of monsters. They thought that victory was already in their hands. They just needed to wait for the fundamental change in the strength of both sides to take down the Zhao family in one fell swoop. They did not expect the Zhao family to have such a hidden card. In an instant, the executives of the joint commander jumped up and down like ants whose nest had been poked. They discussed all kinds of solutions. The spiritual realm was the headquarters of all the sect. This time, it was really like a fire in a backyard. They thought that they could firmly suppress the Zhao family at the beginning, but they did not expect that the Zhao family had already made such arrangements. After receiving the news, Yang Chun and the others looked at each other, but they were not surprised. Thinking about it, it was normal. The Zhao family had spent a lot of effort to arrange such a big event like the demonic calamity of the spiritual realm. Before the demonic calamity, they had even buried the dragon puppet Elder Long Hai and the others for tens of thousands of years. After paying such a huge price, how could they not have a backup plan? This was the Zhao family's plan. If it was in his previous life, no one would discover it, and the Zhao family could carry it out slowly and easily without being discovered. Even if it was discovered in this life and triggered by Yang Chun in advance, it did not prevent the Zhao family from continuing to carry out the plan. It was just that it was a little more difficult to carry out. Yang Chun believed that according to the Zhao family's original plan, they would definitely completely refine the realm of monsters before going after the spiritual realm. Anyway, if the Zhao family did not show up, the Tao Demon and Itinerant Cultivators Alliance would fight among themselves. It was just the right time for them to hide in the dark and reap the benefits. The current situation has not allowed the Zhao family to consider anything more. If it was only the previous plan to refine the demon realm, he was afraid that the longer the time dragged, the greater the advantage of Gong Sun Ling, the more passive the Zhao family would be. On the contrary, taking advantage of this time, when the higher-ups of the Joint Command were concentrated at the entrance of the realm of monsters, they should secretly have designs on the spiritual realm. Perhaps the heavens really wanted the Zhao family to suffer. They had just started to refine the 2 foundation sites that had been prepared for a long time when they were discovered by the cultivators. The eyes of the higher-ups of the Joint Command were no longer focused on the realm of monsters alone. Instead, they also included the spiritual realm. They looked all over the world for abnormalities and judged whether the Zhao family had started to refine it. The actions of the Zhao family finally allowed Yang Chun to recover a little of his previous life's memories. At that time, it seemed that the sect's spirit veins in a few remote areas had been destroyed. However, the news was soon buried in many major events in the spiritual realm, and there was no follow-up. Chapter 2382. Needless to say, those sect's spirit veins were not destroyed at all, but were secretly refined by the Zhao family. The lack of follow-up must have been because the sect that had been in trouble at that time had been taken away by the Zhao family into that spatial artifact. No cultivators continued to investigate, so naturally, there was no follow-up development. Faced with this new situation, Yang Chun did not have a good idea for a while. He could not blatantly let Gong Sunling used the mountain river geographical map to refine the spiritual realm to fight against the other party, right? not to mention implementing this method. As long as he mentioned it, he would probably be scolded to death by those old fellows in the United Command. What was he trying to do by refining the spiritual realm? How could the super sect deal with it? Besides, if he wanted to win against the Zhao family, he could only refine more and stronger spaces. Was he supposed to give all the sect's territories to Gong Sunling for Gong Sunling to refine? Not to mention the super sect, even the most inferior small sect would not make such a decision. The Zhao family's move was indeed beyond the United Command's expectations. The spiritual realm cultivators still wanted to block the other party in the demon realm, but in the blink of an eye, their base of retreat was about to be destroyed. This would not do. The United Command immediately began to respond. The sect was not completely defenseless against the spatial refinement. Many arrays could do this, but the power of the array would vary depending on the cultivation of the cultivator in charge of the array and the source of the spiritual power provided to the array. Under the command of the United Command, almost all the places began to set up some relatively simple arrays that could resist the refinement. Even if some cultivators with low cultivation could not rely on arrays to resist the Zhao family's refining ability for a long time, they could at least slow down the other party's speed. All these simple arrays that were set up at the beginning had only one purpose, which was to buy time so that the big sect would have time and space to set up better, larger, and more stable arrays. The only worry was that they still did not know where the Zhao family had started refining. They had confirmed that there was only one place that they knew, but everyone knew that they could not guard against it forever. They could only tell all the cultivators in the world that if they found any abnormalities, they should immediately report it. Fortunately, the spiritual realm was not as easy to refine as the demon realm. There were many demon beasts in the demon realm, but they had been influenced by the demon Shi for a long time and did not have any intelligence. They only had the instinct to kill and survive. Therefore, when the Dragon Clan expert of the Zhao family refined it, it did not cause any resistance, and refining it was relatively easier. There were cultivators everywhere in the spiritual realm, and as long as there were cultivators, they would definitely resist this kind of refinement. All the cultivators in the world were cultivating all the time. This in itself was an invisible process of resistance and refinement. It could be said that even if the Zhao family could start refining, it would only be a very slow and arduous process. It would not be as easy as refining the demon realm. As long as he discovered them bit by bit, he wouldn't be able to stop them completely, but there would always be a way to resist them. As long as the demon realm was refined by Gong Sunling and the Zhao family, or even before that time, as long as Gong Sunling had the upper hand, she would immediately launch an attack on the Zhao family. At that time, the Zhao family would not be able to divert their attention to the spiritual realm. In the end, the root of the problem was still in the demon realm. They still had to eliminate the Zhao family's core and main strength. The rest was nothing to worry about. What the Joint Command had to do was to stabilize their foothold as much as possible, expand their advantage, and guard against the Zhao family sneak attack. Since the other party had refined a certain place in the spiritual realm, it naturally became a place where the Zhao family experts could appear at any time. This was a huge hidden danger. The Joint Command had no better way to prevent it for the time being. They could only send a few Golden Immortal experts over and set up an array to resist for a while. If the Zhao family experts really relied on that place to appear and disappear unpredictably, the spiritual realm would probably never have a peaceful day. Now that the Joint Command had blocked the entrance to the demon realm, it was possible that half of their forces would go there and block the entrance there. Yang Chun didn't know the thoughts of the Joint Command's higher-ups, but he knew something that others didn't. In his previous life, there were more than one place where something happened to the sect's spirit vein. There were as many as 7 places. If these 7 places were the foundation of the Zhao family's refining of the spiritual realm, Yang Chun would probably have to bite the bullet and talk to the Joint Command higher-ups about how to guard against the other party using these 7 places to attack. He wasn't sure yet because Yang Chun hadn't confirmed whether these 7 places had been refined or not. There were some things that had to be confirmed by himself before bringing them out. It felt very uncomfortable to know that he couldn't say it even though he knew. However, at this time, he couldn't push the root of the problem to the Zhao family's collection in the mortal world. How much could the mortal world know about the spiritual realm? How big of a commotion would it take to send the news down? How much would it cost? If the Zhao family knew so much from their manner in the mortal world, it would be too fake. Just as Yang Chen was having a headache and didn't know how to deal with it, Gong Sunling suddenly came to Yang Chen's side with a surprised expression. What surprised Gong Sunling wasn't Yang Chen's increase in cultivation, but Madame Bai's sudden request to leave. She came to find Yang Chen because Madame Bai had something to say to Yang Chen. I need to leave for a while. When Madame Bai saw Yang Chen, she didn't say much to Yang Chen and went straight to the point. What happened, Madame? Yang Chen knew that Madame Bai didn't want to leave because her family didn't serve her well. There must be a deeper reason, and he wanted to know. A few days ago, I suddenly thought of something. Madame Bai was very satisfied with Yang Chen, so she didn't hide it. She quickly explained, "There's a reason why my sisters and I came to the spiritual realm." Of course, Yang Chen knew that they came to the spiritual realm for a reason, but what did it have to do with them leaving? I didn't think about it before, but a few days ago, there seemed to be a vibration that opened a seal in my brain. Madame Bai pointed at her head and said, "We have to do something, or else the spiritual realm will be destroyed." Yang Chen's eyes widened directly. Wasn't this too incredible? The spiritual realm had just been refined, and now Madame Bai wanted to do something in the spiritual realm. If this was a coincidence, Yang Chen wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. I heard that it's a great merit. Madame Bai didn't hide it. She revealed a beautiful expression of greed, as if she saw a feast. He arranged it, but who is he? Why can't I remember? Chapter 2383. Ancestor Lu arranged it? Yang Chen's eyes almost popped out of their sockets when he heard Madame Bai's muttering. The spiritual realm was in danger of being refined. If Madame Bai and her group could stop this disaster, it was equivalent to saving trillions of lives. What kind of karma was that? Whether it was the heavenly court of the past or the present, there was one type of karma that could never be erased. That was saving lives, especially saving lives that had nothing to do with oneself. That was even greater karma. What did Madame Bai have to do with the spiritual realm? Nothing at all. If these billions of living beings were saved by Madame Bai and the others, they might be able to buy the entire heavenly court with merit when they returned to the immortal realm. Ancestor Lu had already arranged all of this tens of thousands of years ago. He had sent his beloved down here just to wait for this moment to happen. But how did Ancestor Lu know when this would happen? Yang Chen was very curious, so he naturally asked, how did he know that there would be such a thing? And he could arrange it tens of thousands of years in advance? Madame Bai and Yang Chen had been familiar with each other to a certain extent. She had basically regarded Yang Chen as a close junior. She did not even care about his questioning tone. It seems like someone asked him about this tens of thousands of years ago. Madame Bai thought about it for a long time and said with a guess, those fellows asked him how to refine the spirit realm and how to do it. He seemed to have given them away. I knew the Zhao clan couldn't have such a powerful arrangement. So it was him. Before Yang Chen could fully understand the problem, Brother Li Cheng's voice sounded. He was too talkative and made me come all this way. Brother Li Cheng's appearance made Yang Chen understand something. From what Brother Li Cheng said, the Zhao clan didn't have the ability to refine the spiritual realm. They didn't even have a clue. They only got Ancestor Lu's guidance after asking. It wasn't strange that Ancestor Lu came up with this method. If it were someone else, Yang Chen might doubt it. However, Patriarch Lu was definitely one of the few cultivators in the immortal plane with the ability to do so. He's playing so big just to collect a huge amount of merit for you? Big Brother Li Cheng looked a little flustered and exasperated right now. It was probably because Ancestor Lu wasn't in front of him. If he was, he might have pointed at his nose and scolded. If you want merit, don't you know how to talk? It's just a matter of a few words. Do you have to go so far? Big brother that. Perhaps he also understands that some things can't be solved if they continue. No matter what, Ancestor Lu was still considered an elder. Even if it was for the sake of Shi Shanshan and Madame Bai, Yang Chen still had to be respectful to Ancestor Lu. At this time, It was better to appease big brother Li Cheng's temper. However, Madame Bai was not happy with what Li Cheng had said. Even if she didn't remember who Ancestor Lu was, she clearly remembered her true love at that time. How could she allow anyone to say such things about him? Even if the person who spoke was Yang Chen's sworn brother, it was still unacceptable. What do you know? Madame Bai scolded him directly. Since he was Yang Chen's sworn brother, he was naturally in the same generation as Yang Chen. It was not too much for him to call Li Cheng a junior. He must have a deep meaning. Being called a junior by Madame Bai, Li Cheng almost couldn't breathe. However, he couldn't refute her. He could only turn his head and stare at Yang Chen fiercely. This stare confused Yang Chen. What does it have to do with me? Of course, there's a deep meaning. Li Cheng scolded in his heart. Would that old guy spend so much effort to send more than 1,000 tribulation true immortals down to the spiritual realm for no reason? Would he send his lover down for no reason? Would he be so stupid as to answer someone's question about refining the spiritual realm? Not to mention anything else, just look at the moment when the Zhao family began to refine the spiritual realm. Madame Bai noticed that the seal was opened and she recovered part of her memory. She immediately rushed to eat merit. Wasn't it obvious enough? But Li Cheng couldn't say anything, because Madame Bai admitted it meant there was a deep meaning. She didn't deny it. What else can you say? He could only hold his breath. Madame Bai didn't have time to argue with Li Cheng. She immediately set off with many maids after Li Cheng was speechless. She came here to say goodbye to Yang Chen and tell him not to worry. As for Li Cheng, he was Yang Chen's sworn brother. Although he was rude, Madame Bai was his senior and wouldn't lower herself to his level. Brother, you know who was behind Madame Bai? Yang Chen watched Madame Bai leave. Seeing that Li Cheng was still angry, he hurriedly said, since he already has a plan, we don't have to worry about whether the spiritual realm will be refined or not. We just need to focus on refining the monster realm. What do you think? He was the one who gave us the method to refine the spiritual realm. Of course, he has to take care of the aftermath. Li Cheng was really angry. However, Madame Bai had already left, so he had no one to vent his anger on. He could only say, believe it or not, that old man must have given the Zhao family the idea to use the Big Dipper formation to refine the spiritual realm. There will definitely be 7 places that will be refined in a short period of time. There won't be just one. Listening to Big Brother Li Cheng's words, Yang Chen was in awe. No wonder Big Brother Li Cheng was the successor of the Tao ancestor. Just his ability to foresee things like a god was not something an ordinary person could compare to. The memory of his previous life clearly told Yang Chen that at that time there were not many or few sects that had problems, exactly 7. However, in his previous life, no one thought that these 7 places were related. Things did not happen at the same time, so no one checked if there was any internal connection between the 7 places. Now, Yang Chen thought about the 7 sects that had problems. If the entire spiritual realm was used as a reference, the distribution of the 7 sects territories was indeed in the shape of an enlarged Big Dipper. It was no different from the Big Dipper formation that Li Cheng had mentioned. This time, Yang Chen didn't even need to go to those places to know that the 7 places were definitely related to the Zhao family. Who would have thought that the Zhao family's method of refining the spiritual realm was actually obtained from Ancestor Lu? Yang Chen did not doubt that Ancestor Lu was involved in refining the spiritual realm. This was simply impossible. The possible explanations were that Ancestor Lu had purposely let Madame Bai come down to eat merit points. Either that, or he had accidentally revealed the method, and in order to make up for it, he sent his most intimate partner down to the lower realm to help him make up for his mistake. Chapter 2384. No matter which reason it was good news for Yang Chen. As long as Madame Bai took action, Yang Chen didn't have to worry about anything happening in the spiritual realm. He could focus on refining the demon realm with Gong Sunling. As for whether Madame Bai would be useful, not to mention that Madame Bai and the thousands of maids were all tribulation true immortals, just the fact that Madame Bai was Ancestor Lu's lover was enough to guarantee that nothing would go wrong. It would be a joke if Ancestor Lu didn't even have a way to destroy this idea that Ancestor Lu gave Zhao family. Even if Ancestor Lu said that he was apologizing for accidentally revealing the method, Madame Bai and her group would definitely succeed. Not to mention, this would bring Madame Bai a lot of merit points. Ancestor Lu was willing to sacrifice his life for Madame Bai's merit points. This meant that Zhao family started planning to refine the spiritual realm tens of thousands of years ago. This way, they didn't have a long time to prepare. It was much shorter than the millions of years that Yang Chen guessed. Madame Bai and the others were probably sent down by Ancestor Lu around that time. Since they prepared early, it was naturally better to do it as soon as possible. All these years, Ancestor Lu probably disappeared in the Immortal realm so that Zhao family cultivators didn't know his whereabouts and naturally didn't know the whereabouts of Madame Bai and the others. It could be said that the root of the problem was Ancestor Lu, but Ancestor Lu had already arranged a solution. According to karma, Ancestor Lu would at most make no loss or gain. On the other hand, Madame Bai and the maids would get a lot of merit out of thin air. It was very worth it. If it was Yang Chen, he would be happy to do this too. Of course, the premise was that Ancestor Lu knew that someone would definitely stop the Zhao family. Big Brotherly Chung was probably unhappy because his painstaking arrangements had been used by Ancestor Lu, so he was somewhat angry out of humiliation. With so many clues strung together, it was easy to figure out a lot of problems. At the end of the day, be it the mortal realm or the spiritual realm, they were all tools in the hands of those big shots in the Immortal realm. The Zhao family was so secretive that Ancestor Lu knew about it tens of thousands of years ago. Sometimes, Yang Chen couldn't help but think that the change of dynasties in the heavenly court was already in the eyes of almighty people like Ancestor Lu. Why did they sit and watch the heavenly court being turned upside down, but not do anything? The more Yang Chen thought about it, the more he felt that he was a failure in his previous life. He lived muddle-headedly for tens of thousands of years. Not only was he bullied, but he didn't even get to see such a big event played by the big shots, let alone participate in it. What zenith heaven, golden immortal? He wasn't even worthy of carrying shoes for others. Fortunately, he finally had the qualifications to enter the chessboard in this life. He didn't dare to boast about other things, but the huge Taishiman's Xiantian gate had disappeared without a trace under his control. The shocking conspiracy of the Zhao family was also exposed in front of all the cultivators because of him. In this way, wouldn't he also have a share of the great amount of merits that Madame Bai would receive in the future? No one would complain about having too many merit points, and Yang Chen was even more so. Since Yang Chen had Longxian on his side, he could solidify his merit points completely. Even if the heaven court were to change again, it wouldn't be able to erase it. Therefore, the more merit points he had, the better. The pitiful Zhao family was still kept in the dark. They didn't realize that their huge family had been schemed against tens of thousands of years ago. In the eyes of the big shots, they were probably a pile of chess pieces. At best, they were some of the more important chess pieces. Otherwise, Big Brother Li Chung wouldn't have to deal with them. No, even Big Brother Li Chung didn't go to deal with the Zhao family, but to solve the problem of the increasing concentration of devil chi and demon chi in the devil realm and the demon realm. At most, he would have a little relationship with the Zhao family and solve it conveniently. From Big Brother Li Cheng's actions, it could be seen that a deal with the Zhao family, Big Brother Li Cheng, just let Yang Chen appear in a certain place to lure him out and then expose him. Big Brother Li Cheng almost didn't do anything about how to deal with the Zhao family. Instead, he spent the most effort on how to refine the demon realm, and how to refine the entrance and exit of the demon realm and monster realm. Everything had its priorities. From this, it could be seen what Big Brother Li Cheng valued the most. Anyway, it was definitely not the Zhao family. He really didn't know if the Zhao family would fly into a rage after knowing their position in the hearts of the big shots. Anyway, Yang Chen felt that they were quite pitiful. They tried their best to fight for the position of a chess piece. If he had known this, he would have been better off being an ignorant little cultivator like Yang Chen in his previous life. At least sometimes, not knowing was also a kind of happiness. For example, many little cultivators in the spiritual realm knew that the Zhao family was an evil big devil, but they didn't know what they were going to do, so they weren't very worried. On the contrary, the Joint Command knew very well, so they had to live in fear every day and be on guard at all times. They couldn't eat or sleep well. Knowing more might not be a good thing. Or they might as well be like Yang Chun, knowing enough, even more than the sect masters of the Joint Command sect. That was also a good thing. The most pitiful ones were those who didn't know much and were in pain. Now that they knew that the Zhao family's operation would inevitably fail, Yang Chun and Gong Sunling didn't have to worry about anything in the spiritual realm anymore. They worked together to refine the demon realm. The Zhao family's attention on the spiritual realm would inevitably lead to negligence in the demon realm. It was the best time to snatch the spiritual realm from the dragon expert. Neither Yang Chun nor Gong Sunling would make low-level mistakes. It would be strange if they didn't seize such a good opportunity. As Yang Chun knew, the upper echelons of the Joint Command were in a mess. There was no fundamental way to resist the Zhao family's action of refining the spiritual realm for the time being. At most, they could only delay it. How to resist the refinement was a new topic that no one had encountered before. A large group of powerful earth mystic immortal cultivators were referring to the experience of refining cave abodes and herb gardens to study countermeasures. It was a mess. Even a few golden immortals from the lower realm were involved. The spiritual realm was the base camp of all the sect, so they couldn't afford to lose it. There were also countless cultivators patrolling the entire spiritual realm, looking for places similar to the place where it was refined. Everyone was on tenterhooks, afraid that they would find another similar place. If there were too many fires, it would be impossible to extinguish them even if they wanted to. Fortunately, it wasn't to the point of being in a desperate situation for the time being. The upper echelons of the Joint Command looked at Gong Sunling, who had been refining the demon realm, and felt slightly relieved. What they were most afraid of now was that in the end, they couldn't stop the Zhao family from refining the spiritual realm, and they could only use Gong Sunling to compete with the other party for the refinement. But the problem was whether it was the Zhao family or Gong Sunling. How much of a substantial difference would there be for the major sect? Wouldn't it be because their territory was gone and they became pets in other people's spatial magic treasures? Chapter 2385. In fact, the major sect knew very well that the only thing that could fight against the Zhao family's spatial magic weapon seemed to be Gong Sunling's Mountain River geographical map. All the other methods were just to delay the speed of the other party refining the spiritual world. The problem was not to mention the super sect. Even the most inferior small sect was not willing to rely on others. If it wasn't because of the threat of life and death, those sects would not even be willing to rely on a big sect. Relying on others was not the will of the heart. Who could accept struggling in someone else's spatial magic weapon? That was directly sending a knife to their neck to others, and their life and death were at the mercy of others. Not to mention cultivators, even a native with a brain knew that they could not do such a stupid thing. Knowing that everyone was thinking like this, Yang Chun and Gong Sunling just buried themselves in their own affairs and did not even mention that they would participate. The space of the demon realm could be fought for, but the spiritual world would be handed over to Madame Bai and the others, so as not to make things difficult for these sect. However, the Joint Command had made a fool out of Yang Chun before, and Yang Chun was not kind enough to take the initiative to help them eliminate the disaster, nor would he take the initiative to tell them that these troubles had long been eaten as merits. Daring to covet their woman's natal magic weapon, they deserved to be worried from the beginning to the end. Here, Yang Chen's family and Chunyang Palace were buried in their own affairs, and the Joint Command was really in a mess. There was no other reason than that another place was found to be refined. The second place of the spiritual world that was refined by the Zhao family was discovered. In addition to hurriedly sending people over to set up arrays around a chase and intercept it, many of the senior executives of the Joint Command hoped that there would not be a third one. At least one golden immortal master had to be sent over to guard the place, in case the other party suddenly attacked from there. A lot of Xian immortal masters had to be sent over as well. Whether it was setting up arrays or defense, they needed manpower. At this time, the senior executives of the Joint Command realized that they still thought too simply of the Zhao family. Previously, the series of failures and losses of the Zhao family was only because they wanted to make arrangements in a more secretive manner without alarming the other parties. To think that the other parties in the spiritual world thought that the Zhao family could not hold on anymore. It was also because of the carelessness on the side of the Joint Commanders. They were blinded by the previous series of victories and completely forgot that even a cunning rabbit had 3 burrows, let alone the cunning Zhao family that was tens of thousands of times more cunning than a cunning rabbit. Now that the Zhao family had refined 2 points in the spiritual realm, it was equivalent to having 2 more bridgeheads in the spiritual realm. As long as they wanted to, they could kill their way out of those 2 places at any time. Blocking the entrance to the demon realm seemed to be meaningless. After a quick and efficient discussion, the Joint Commander quickly made a decision to move. Since this place was already meaningless, it was really a waste for everyone to squeeze in here. To deal with the 2 new bridgeheads of the Zhao family, it was more suitable to do it elsewhere. Hence, there was another problem. Although this place seemed to be meaningless on the surface, he couldn't just give up. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the 2 bridgeheads, but if the Zhao family were to charge out from there, it would be a big joke. They had to defend this place with all their might. Nothing could go wrong. What should they do? The higher-ups of the Joint Commander pondered for a while, and all their eyes were fixed on Grandmaster Wang Yong, who already had some say. I'll go talk to Yang Chun. Grandmaster Wang Yong was not pretentious. At this time, everyone was facing a common enemy, and it was not the time to pursue the past. Grandmaster Wang Yong immediately ran to Yang Chun and raised the issue. Yang Chun nodded without saying anything. Only in front of Grandmaster Wang Yong, Yang Chun didn't have to pat his chest and guarantee that he would leave the entrance to the demon realm to him. Since Yang Chun was willing, everyone was naturally happy. As long as Yang Chun's family was willing to guard the entrance to the demon realm, the other party basically didn't have a good chance to come in. On the other hand, the Ghostine sect and the Ghost Soul sect wanted to ask in a roundabout way if they could release the golden immortal patriarchs of their sects, so that those golden immortal experts could play a more role, but they were directly rejected by Yang Chun. The entrance to the demon realm was larger here, and it was easier to enter and exit than the 2 bridgeheads. It required a few golden immortal experts to guard it. Just this reason alone was enough to block the Ghostine sect and the Ghost Soul sect. They failed to get their hands on the natal magic treasure, but they still didn't want to pay any price. How could there be such a good thing in the world? Not to mention the person involved, Yang Chun himself. Even the sect masters of the other sect who were watching from the sidelines had the same idea. As for the Wuji Demon School, it was even less of a problem. They would definitely support Yang Chun's decision. Fortunately, Yang Chun didn't take it too far. Not only did he promise to the higher-ups of the Joint Commander that the Zhao family would never be allowed to enter and exit from this entrance, but he also said that he only needed the assistance of those golden immortal experts. There was no need for the major sect to send more people to guard. Of course, those who wanted to gain experience could do so at any time. This statement made the higher-ups of the Joint Commander speechless. Even the sect masters of the Ghostine sect and the Ghost Soul sect were speechless. He only wanted to detain the 6 golden immortals, and he didn't want any other help. He also wanted to ensure that the entrance to the demon realm was safe. It could be said that Yang Chun had helped them solve most of their problems. For this, they paid the price of losing the freedom of 6 golden immortal experts, and they were sure that there would be no danger to their lives. This could be said to be a big profit. One must know that the other golden immortal experts had to guard the 2 bridgeheads, and they might have to fight with the experts of the Zhao family, who suddenly appeared. However, after thinking about it carefully, everyone also felt that it was a bit of a pity. Although Yang Chun's family guaranteed that they could guard this place, it also meant that the 44 experts, including Yang Chun, were trapped here. In addition to the 6 golden immortals, there were 50 peerless experts. No wonder Yang Chun dared to guarantee that if 50 experts of their level and the geographical map still couldn't guard this place, it would be useless no matter how many cultivators there were. Yang Chun alone, if he went all out, he might be able to fight against 5 golden immortals. After making the final arrangements, the higher-ups of the Joint Commander finally let out a collective sigh of relief. For the time being, they didn't have to worry about Yang Chen's other intentions. To be honest, after being refined from the inside of the spiritual realm, everyone was most worried that Yang Chen would take the initiative to volunteer to help fight and snatch the refined space from the other party. Rejecting the tiger at the front door and letting the wolf at the back door, this matter must not happen in the spiritual realm. Now is the best. Although Yang Chen's family and the 6 golden immortal experts were restrained, it could also ensure that the entrance to the demon realm was impregnable. For the time being, they didn't have to worry about Yang Chen also having the intention to refine the spiritual realm. Chapter 2386. Speaking of which, it seemed that none of the higher-ups of the Joint Command thought about whether Gong Sunling would have any ambitions, and all their thoughts were focused on Yang Chen. It was also because they knew Yang Chen's family too well that they realized that all of Yang Chen's wives and concubines actually followed Yang Chen's lead. If Yang Chen said one thing, they would definitely not say another. Just this point alone was enough to make countless cultivators who had a lion's roar from the east of the River drool in envy. If it weren't for their pride, they would have probably asked Yang Chen for advice on how to control his wife. Yang Chen guaranteed that there would be no problems here, and at the same time, the Joint Command temporarily got rid of a worry, so everyone was happy. However, the Joint Command still asked Yang Chen to harass the other party as much as possible so that the Zhao family could be distracted and slow down the speed at which the spiritual realm was refined. Very soon, the Joint Command quickly moved to the most suitable place in the spiritual realm, where it was convenient to take care of several places at the same time. The speed of moving was extremely fast because the 3rd refining point had also been discovered. The main goal of the Joint Command now was to stop the Zhao family from refining the spiritual realm. No matter what method they used, they had to find a solution before the Zhao family could free up their hands. If there was really no solution in the end, they would probably have to let Gong Sunling take action. That was the situation that the Joint Command didn't want to see the most. Fortunately, the situation wasn't that critical and could still be salvaged. Before the Joint Command left, Yang Chen also gave them a piece of information for free. Judging from his Zhao family's extravagance in the past, it was definitely impossible to refine the spiritual realm at just 3 points. It must be a large formation that could cover the entire spiritual realm. Of course, Yang Chen didn't forget to mention a few possible formations, such as Yin and Yang, 3 talents, 4 directions, 5 elements, 6 directions, 7 stars, 8 trigrams, and 9 return to 1. If the higher-ups of the Joint Command listened to him, they might be able to deduce which formation it was from these formations. Although the formation that Ancestor Lu pointed out was definitely different from ordinary formations, there wouldn't be much difference in the direction. As long as he followed this clue, it wouldn't be a bad thing to set it up in advance, even if he didn't dare to say that he could break the formation. Yang Chen had underestimated the weight of his words. When he reminded them of this, all the major sect immediately joined forces and asked the strongest formation masters in their respective sect to study the 3 locations that had been discovered. Back then, when Yang Chen unsealed Elder Chong, Elder Hai, and the others, Yang Chen did not have a detailed map of the spiritual realm, so it took him a lot of effort to deduce the location of the dragon puppet with Li Cheng. However, a detailed map was not a problem for the major sect. It did not mean that they all had maps of the entire spiritual realm, but the topography of their respective sects' territories was recorded in great detail. Even the territories of the 3 River Alliance, the 1,000 Demon Sect, and the Holocaust Sect, which had been destroyed, had been divided up by various parties and had been thoroughly explored. Each party would fuse their own detailed maps together to obtain a complete and detailed map of the spirit world. This complete map was even more accurate than the internal simulation of the spiritual realm in Gong Sunling's Mountain River geographical map. After all, Gong Sunling did not travel all over the spiritual realm, so it was impossible for her to obtain the complete terrain. The map of the Dragon Palace Square was also not as detailed. It recorded the various spiritual veins, but did not have a complete location. On this incomparably detailed and complete map, After marking the 3 spots that could already be discovered and refined, the various formation masters began to calculate the possible formations that matched the distribution of these 3 spots according to the positions of the various formations. It had to be said that it was really not difficult for so many super sect to join forces to do something. In less than a month, hundreds of array formation masters had found hundreds of array formations that matched these 3 points from a variety of complex array formations. However, because there were only 3 spots, they could only determine this to this point. This was the result of excluding some other formations that were obviously not likely to be refined, such as attack and defense. If they were to arrange according to so many results, the workload would definitely be astronomical. Not to mention a joint command, they might not even be able to double the number of all the sect members in the spiritual realm. After all, they had to send out experts at least at the heaven immortal level. Human immortals and earth immortals were at best assistants. Fortunately, there were still smart people in each sect. Some of them began to ponder over what Yang Chun had said. Yang Chun had mentioned many formations. If they were to filter them according to the names of the formations that Yang Chun had mentioned, there seemed to be only 3 or 4 left. Among these 3 or 4 formations, if they were to be arranged according to the formation, there was probably only the 7 stars formation that had the highest possibility of affecting the entire spiritual realm. The formation master from Yin Yang Demon School who had discovered this did not announce it in advance. Instead, he informed his sect. Everyone was cooperating, but it might not be a complete cooperation. Under the situation where the general direction was the same, internal competition was inevitable. Because Yin Yang Demon School had chosen the wrong side last time, the higher-ups had always regretted it. Now that they heard the judgment of their own master, they no longer had any doubts. They immediately sent out experts to the few possible points. 2 months later, the formation masters from the other sect were still painstakingly eliminating more than 20 of the more than 100 formations. When there were still more than 80 formations left to study, the experts sent by Yin Yang Demon School returned with news. They had discovered the 4th point. This point had not been refined by the Zhao family, but it was already in the process of being refined. The experts from Yin Yang Demon School who had arrived in time used a few formations to successfully delay the Zhao family's refining speed. The large-scale formations that they had set up afterward were in a stalemate with the Zhao family. They could not continue refining here, and they could not stop the Zhao family. When they received this news, Yin Yang Demon School was overjoyed. They immediately reported the results of their experts' research and the 4th point that they had discovered. Only then did the higher-ups of the United Command understand that Yin Yang Demon School had made such a great contribution only because Yang Chun had mentioned a few possible formations when he had reminded them. When they thought of the crux of the matter, the higher-ups of the sect felt their intestines turn green with regret. When it came to refining space, was there anyone in the spiritual realm who understood it better than Gong Sunling? She had already reminded them so clearly, so why didn't they believe her? Yin Yang Demon School had already sent people to thank Yang Chun with a large number of gifts. It had not been easy for them to build a relationship with him, so they had to be on good terms with him no matter what. Of course, they had to remind their 31 beautiful female disciples to hold onto Yang Chen's thighs no matter what. Yang Chun could only laugh at what had happened. No matter how hard the spiritual realm sect worked, Madame Bai and the others would definitely benefit in the end. He had made up his mind to not participate and just guard his own stall. Moreover, there was another matter that puzzled Yang Chun. Shi Wushuang was actually sick, and very sick at that. Chapter 2387. Shi Wushuang was sick, which really sounded like a fantasy. It must be known that Shi Wushuang was a proper Xian Immortal Peak cultivator, only 1 step away from the Golden Immortal Realm, and her spiritual awareness cultivation base had even reached the great principal Golden Immortal level. It was simply impossible for such a powerful cultivator to be sick. Moreover, others were not clear, but Yang Chen knew it very clearly. Shi Wushuang had a wood attribute spirit root, and in the process of crossing the heavenly tribulation with the Penglai divine wood, she had reached a state of sharing life. The vitality of the 24 Penglai divine wood demons was so strong that they could actually get sick. Hearing this news, Yang Chen's first reaction was that it was impossible, and the second reaction immediately became a little ecstatic. Was Shi Wuxuang pregnant? Unless the cultivators had no hope of ascending, they would not consider pregnancy and childbirth under normal circumstances, because pregnancy and childbirth would greatly damage the cultivators' vitality, especially female cultivators. Therefore, in most cases, when high-level cultivators had children, the father was usually very strong and the mother was relatively hopeless, so they attached themselves to the strong and then used the child to protect the rest of their life. It was not that male cultivators did not hurt their vitality, but it was relatively less, and the impact was actually not very big. In the past, the sovereign of Wuji Demon School, Yi Zhenxiong, had children when he was in the mortal world. Because he had many wives and concubines, one of them who had no hope of ascending chose to have children. So there was Yi Yu. Of course, there were exceptions. In the past, the old generation of heavenly dipper elders of the profound heaven sect, because each of them ate an average of 2 millennium pills, forcibly improving their cultivation base, causing their realm to be almost unstable. After solving the crisis of the sect, they all chose to have children, consume their vitality, and remove the hidden dangers of forcibly improving their cultivation base. However, these situations were not applicable to Shi Wuxuang. It must be known that Shi Wuxuang was a genius disciple of the Qinkuan sect, who didn't ascend. It was impossible for her not to ascend. Moreover, with Shi Wuxuang's current cultivation base, as long as she was willing, she could ascend at any time and anywhere. There was no problem of no hope of ascending. Why would she choose to get pregnant and have children? Yang Chun wanted a descendant, but it did not mean that he would sacrifice the future of his women. In any case, it was Gong Sunling who sent the news that Shi Wuxuang was sick. Yang Chun had to wait until he saw Shi Wuxuang to know the reason. To Yang Chen's surprise, Shi Wuxuang was not pregnant, but really sick. His entire body was burning up, and his face was as red as a red cloth. When he touched his body, he felt as though he was touching boiling water. Shi Wuxuang fell sick after returning from a sect. Since the Joint Command Center was moving, she naturally stayed. She was cultivating in the Mountain River geographical map with her sisters, but she didn't expect to suddenly faint. The girls didn't know what happened and hurriedly told Yang Chun. Before Yang Chun arrived, the girls had already taken Shi Wuxuang's pulse. Although they weren't particularly proficient in the art of medicine, they had cultivated for thousands of years after all. They more or less understood the art of medicine. In the mortal world, the worst of them would probably be a famous doctor who could practice medicine to save the world. But the results of their pulse diagnosis were very strange. Shi Wuxuang now seemed to have a common disease of mortals in the mortal world, and this was the symptom of typhoid. Yang Chun arrived in time and began to diagnose carefully. But after less than half an incense stick of time, Yang Chun frowned. His diagnosis was exactly the same as that of the girls. This was the symptom of typhoid in the mortal world, although the fever was more serious now. As long as he paid attention to recuperation, coupled with the timely decoction, the body would recover in 3 to 5 days. However, the dignified Xian Immortal cultivator who had passed the heaven immortal tribulation and whose body was already many times stronger than most cultivators in the spiritual world would get typhoid? Why did this sound so ridiculous? Yang Chun was not at ease. He carefully checked it with his spiritual awareness again and used various methods to check it carefully. He still came to the same conclusion. A small problem like typhoid fever, for Yang Chun, an 8th grade alchemist master, it could be said that it was a simple matter. He refined some simple decoctions and fed them to the unconscious Shi Wuxuang, and then carefully cooled down Shi Wuxuang. Soon, Shi Wuxuang's situation was under control. This made everyone a little puzzled. The more correct the method, the more correct everyone's judgment was. However, this was clearly contrary to common sense. Such a strong body, such a strong cultivation. How could there be such a problem? In less than 3 days, Shi Wuxuang woke up and her body recovered day by day. By the 10th day, Shi Wuxuang had completely returned to normal and there was no abnormality in her cultivation. After checking Shi Wuxuang up and down again, Yang Chun was relieved. On the other hand, Shi Wushuang liked her husband's gentle care and care very much. She was very tired of Yang Chun for 2 days. After confirming that Shi Wushuang had no more problems, Yang Chun began to ask Shi Wushuang what she had experienced before returning to the sect, who she had contacted, which fellow disciples she had offended, whether she had encountered any accidents on the way back, whether she had been plotted against, and so on. He asked in detail. However, Shi Wushuang herself was very confused. After returning to the sect, Shi Wushuang was now the personal disciple of the sect master and Yang Chen's concubine. She was almost the most popular person in the entire Qinquan sect. Many people rushed to curry favor with her. How could there be any dissatisfaction? Even if there was, it was probably because Shi Wushuang was too busy to see others, which was understandable. Would a cultivator who could cultivate to the spiritual world be angered because of this? Perhaps there were some petty people with high cultivation, but even if there were such people, they had no chance to contact Shi Wushuang. How could they plot against Shi Wushuang? It was the same on the way. Shi Wushuang almost didn't reveal her whereabouts. She flew on her sword all the way and never stopped. With her current cultivation, there might not be an enemy who could plot against her without being discovered by her. After careful consideration for a long time, Shi Wushuang was very sure that she hadn't been plotted against by anyone. Her symptoms didn't seem like she had been plotted against. If someone had really plotted against Shi Wushuang, it wouldn't be a big deal to let her catch a cold. Shouldn't they have been seriously injured or poisoned? Puzzled, Yang Chen couldn't help but find Brother Li Cheng and ask him for advice. After Yang Chen described Shi Wushuang's symptoms and the subsequent medical process in detail, he asked Brother Li Cheng what the reason might be. Are you sure you haven't been plotted against? Brother Li Cheng's first reaction was that someone had plotted against her. After seeing Yang Chen nod, Brother Li Cheng couldn't help but fall in a deep thought. After a while, he shook his head. It shouldn't be. Her cultivation is so low. This shouldn't have happened. Chapter 2388. Low cultivation base? Shouldn't it be? Yang Chen was very keen to catch these 2 words and quickly asked, is it right to have a high cultivation base? Do you believe that there is a perfect person in this world? Big Brother Li Cheng did not answer Yang Chen's question, but asked a question, the kind of perfect person whose whole body is as pure as glass. How is it possible? Yang Chen shook his head directly. He was also a cultivator himself, and he was still a rare cultivator who knew the interior of the body very well. How could he believe that there was such a person? Can't a cultivator do it? Big Brother Li Cheng liked this inductive education method and frequently used it on Yang Chen. However, Yang Chen was still very fond of this because this method could maximize Yang Chen's own thinking. Cultivators can't do it. Even people like our family can't do it. Yang Chen still shook his head. The impurities in the body could only be reduced as much as possible, and it was impossible to completely disappear. Even if Yang Chen's family used the 4 C's mysterious coral liquid to make tea and used the 4 C's mysterious coral liquid to take a bath, it was impossible to completely remove the impurities. In the realm of cultivation of Yang Chen's family, no one knew better than them. Why do mortals get sick? Big Brother Li Cheng then asked another question. People eat grains. How can they not get sick? Yang Chen answered with a very popular saying. Why do cultivators rarely get sick? Big Brother Li Cheng asked another question. The spiritual power brought by cultivation nourishes the body and is healthier than mortals. Yang Chen still gave a very simple answer. Is there no problem at all with the medicinal pills used by cultivators? Big Brother Li Cheng's thinking was very jumpy, and he immediately turned to medicinal pills. How is it possible? There are 3 poisons in the medicine. At most, the refining is good and the problem is minor. Medicinal pills were Yang Chen's strength, but even so, he did not dare to say that the medicinal pills he refined were completely without problems, but the negative effects were relatively small after the cultivators ate them. Everything was relative. It was impossible to be absolute. If that's the case, then why do you think that cultivators can't get sick and typhoid? Big Brother Li Cheng's final attack directly hit Yang Chen's weak spot. I just feel that even if there's a problem with a cultivator's body, it shouldn't just be a small problem like typhoid. Yang Chun thought for a moment, organized his words, and slowly said, "It's already at the point where there's a problem with your body, so it's definitely not a small problem. It's definitely a big problem." Logically, that's right. Big brother Li Chung nodded. He was very satisfied that Yang Chun didn't insist that cultivators couldn't get sick. Since cultivators can have problems with their bodies, then some have big problems and some have small problems. Is it hard to understand? Yang Chun was completely speechless. From Big Brother Li Cheng's previous words, Yang Chun already understood a lot of things, but the latter sentence was obviously a little shameless. This degree of small typhoid was simply unimaginable for cultivators, so how could it be such an answer? But when he thought about how sure Wushuang really only had a small typhoid, Yang Chun also put away that completely inconceivable thought and began to ponder over the deeper meaning. According to Big Brother Li Chung, even if a cultivator experienced all kinds of cultivation improvements and their body's degree of health greatly improved, they still might not be able to completely eliminate the impurities in their body. When the accumulated impurities reached a certain amount, it would cause various aspects of the body to feel uncomfortable. If it was an ordinary mortal, then a small amount of impurities could cause illness. However, the body of a cultivator was too strong, and it would become stronger as their cultivation increased. This would cause a problem. If the improvement in cultivation was faster than the accumulation of impurities, then there wouldn't be any problems. But once this process stopped, the illness would probably come knocking on the door. It could be imagined that the stronger the cultivator, the more terrifying the amount of impurities accumulated in their body. When the impurities that could not be forced out by a high level of cultivation could accumulate to the point that they could cause illness, then it would not just be a small injury, but a real big trouble. From his point of view, Shi Wushuang only caused some small typhoid, which was really lucky. But what Yang Chun was concerned about now was, to what extent would the accumulation cause this kind of impurities to rebound? To what realm of cultivation would there be such a problem, and would every cultivator have such a problem? Could it be prevented in advance? Of course, there was also an important question. That was why he and the other women were fine, but Shi Wushuang, who had the strongest vitality, had a problem. Yang Chun suddenly found that he seemed to have missed something. Yes, when Shi Wushuang was sick, he actually forgot to observe the state of those Penglai Divine Wood demons. The next moment, Yang Chun appeared beside those Penglai Divine Wood demons. The 24 Penglai Divine Wood demons seemed to be in a good state. They had been rooted around the Dragon Palace in the form of their original bodies, arranging two 12 Yuanchun sea suppression formations. From the looks of it, every single one of them was in a rare good state, showing signs of vigorous growth. Thinking about Shi Wushuang, it seemed that after a minor illness, her mental state and physical state were surprisingly good. Shi Wushuang was a person around Yang Chun. How could Yang Chun not know the changes that had happened to her before and after? At first, he thought it was the result of the improvement of cultivation. Now, looking at the state of these Penglai Divine Wood demons, it seemed that it should have nothing to do with cultivation. It should be related to the minor illness. Yang Chun carefully asked these Penglai Divine Wood demons what their state was during the few days when Shi Wushuang was ill. Sure enough, as Yang Chun expected, when Shi Wushuang was ill and in a coma, these Penglai Divine Wood demons also felt uncomfortable. However, their original bodies appeared, and for the little discomfort, they only thought that the aura of the spiritual vein in the Dragon Palace was not right recently, and did not take it to heart. After Shi Wushuang and the Penglai Divine Wood demons had a small cold, their physical condition was very good, and their cultivation had also advanced by leaps and bounds in the past few days. This situation still attracted enough attention from Yang Chun. Brother Li Chang said before that Shi Wushuang's cultivation was low, and there should be no such problem. In other words, in fact, all the cultivators' cultivation was high enough, and when they reached the bottleneck of the cultivation, it was possible to have this problem, but usually it should be beyond the realm of Yang Chun's previous life. Because in the previous life, Yang Chun had not experienced this stage and had no memory of these. Beyond the cultivation of Yang Chun's previous life, it was at least the peak of almighty Immortal or even the level of 10,000 tribulation true immortal. Yang Chun could fully imagine how terrible the trouble caused by the accumulation of impurities in the body at that time would be caused by the impurities that could not be eliminated. However, if the key to the problem could really be found, perhaps it could be like Shi Wushuang. A small cold could solve the problem. For Yang Chun, for Yang Chen's family, for all the cultivators, it would be great news. Chapter 2389. In the past, Yang Chen's cultivation was insufficient, or his vision was not far-sighted enough, so he did not see the possible problems in it. It was not until Shi Wushuang fell ill that he learned from Brother Li Cheng about the cultivation of 10,000 tribulations true immortal. The principle was easy to understand, but how to deal with it at that stage was different for everyone. Yang Chun could understand this even with his toes. It was certain that each sect had its own secret at that time, and even different cultivation methods might have different methods. Senior cultivators would try their best to survive this disaster. But after Yang Chun experienced Shi Wushuang's illness, he had other ideas. According to Brother Li Cheng, Shi Wushuang had a typhoid because of the impurities in her body and some accumulated toxins that could not be discharged from the body. But after experiencing a typhoid, the body would automatically clean up most of the sediment. This was the body's self-defense function, and even the cultivators could not change it. This process, as an alchemist, was easy to understand for Yang Chun. The only thing he did not understand was why Shi Wushuang had this change at this stage. Perhaps it was because Shi Wushuang's vitality was too strong, sharing life with 24 Penglai Divine with demons, which was a vitality that even Yang Chun could not look up to. It could be called Penglai Divine would because it was a spiritual thing between heaven and earth. The vitality contained in each Penglai Divine would exceeded that of a zenith heaven golden immortal. 24 Penglai Divine would demons shared life with Shi Wushuang. According to Yang Chen's estimation, Shi Wushuang's vitality at the moment had definitely surpassed that of a zenith heaven golden immortal, and may even reach the level of 10,000 tribulations true immortal, so such a change would occur. If there was no explanation from Brother Li Cheng, perhaps Yang Chun would be like an ordinary cultivator regarding the bottleneck or illness that would only appear at that realm as a tribulation in cultivation. But now, Yang Chun did not have to think about it in such a complicated way. Wasn't it just the accumulation of various impurities? Then he would take the initiative to let his body fall ill. Just like Shi Wushuang, wouldn't it be very easy to adjust his body with a little pain? Many people in the mortal world would take the initiative to give their children small doses of medicine every 6 to 6 months to clear away the accumulated food in their bodies. Then, the children would become healthier. How similar was this process to what Shi Wushuang and Brother Li Cheng had described? Moreover, there were similarities in the theory. Yang Chun thought about it and felt that this simple method could achieve the same effect. For practitioners, this tribulation would only appear when they reached the level of innumerable tribulation true immortals. But once it appeared, it would be a great tribulation. If they were not careful in dealing with it, their primordial chi would be greatly damaged. There were so many 10,000 tribulation true immortals in the immortal world. Why did so many of them get pregnant and have children at that level? It was probably because they had not survived this tribulation. This could also be referenced by the mortals in the mortal world. Many healthy mortals would not fall ill for a long time, but once they did, it would be a serious illness. Because of the accumulation of various impurities in their bodies over a long period of time, a simple quantitative change would lead to a qualitative change. On the contrary, some people who would have a fever, cough, and sneeze every once in a while would not suddenly have a serious illness. Because of the frequent minor illnesses, not only would the accumulated poison in the body be released, but it would also temper the body's resistance. Compared to those who have been relying on their physique to resist the serious illness, it was much easier. Of course, a minor illness would slightly damage the primordial chi, but the injury was small. Not only could it be easily recovered, but it could also be improved. This might be of little significance to ordinary mortals, but if it was used in cultivation, it would be a cultivation reform that could move even the 10,000 tribulation true immortals. There were so many 10,000 tribulation true immortals in the immortal world who got pregnant and had children. If they were all stuck on this ridge, Yang Chun didn't know how many masters could be saved by this truth. However, it was not enough to just know the reason. It had to be put into practice. Don't look at how Yang Chun was now able to observe the most subtle structure of his own body, but how the internal operation of the body was not clear to him. Anyway, this was the time for Madame Bai and the others to collect merits. Yang Chun would certainly not be stupid enough to go out and destroy it, let alone fight with Madame Bai for anything. Now he had more merits than he could spend, so there was no need to covet the little bit of merit that Ancestor Liu had carefully arranged for Madame Bai. If Ancestor Liu knew that the merit he had painstakingly collected for Madame Bai was only a little bit from Yang Chun, it was unknown whether Ancestor Liu would directly beat up Yang Chun in exasperation. The refining of the demon realm was managed by Gong Sun Ling, and the third primordial spirit was enough. Yang Chun could just test whether his idea was correct or not. What he saw from Shi Wushuang should be that Shi Wushuang was getting healthier after a minor illness, but she was only one person after all. In addition, the Penglai Divine with demons did not seem to be persuasive, so Yang Chun still needed more experiments. Back to Yang Chun's old profession, alchemy. However, this time, it was not a healing and nourishing pill. On the contrary, it was a pill to clear the stasis and purge the internal heat. Because the cultivation of Yang Chun's family had reached the late abstruse immortal and peak abstruse immortal, Yang Chun even had to carry out high-grade refining in order for the medicinal materials to be effective. At their level of cultivation, ordinary medicinal herbs with slight laxatives or even minor toxins would not be able to affect their bodies. To achieve the effect, it could only be strengthened 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. Yang Chun never thought that one day he would refine this kind of poison. He had never had such an experience. Not to mention Yang Chun, even if it was other alchemy masters, they rarely had such an experience. On the contrary, many fierce demons in the demon sects studied more about this. Therefore, it was extremely rare for Yang Chun to let Lady Feng Hua and 30 concubines accompany him in alchemy. After all, they came from Yin Yang Demon School. They still had some experience in this regard and could guide Yang Chun. In the pill room of the Dragon Palace, Lady Feng Hua and the other women heard Yang Chun's request to refine this kind of poison. They all stared with their eyes wide and couldn't imagine it. If Yang Chun was refining a powerful poison, it would be fine, but Yang Chun only asked for a little toxicity that could make people vomit and have diarrhea for a period of time. This was really strange. However, although it was inconceivable, none of the women objected. Their husband's authority in alchemy was not something they could easily shake. Since he wanted to refine such a thing, there must be his reason. What the women could do was to cooperate with Yang Chun to refine this kind of thing. Chapter 2390. The prescription chosen by Yang Chun was a very common prescription in the mortal world for clearing silt and eliminating internal heat, but all the medicinal herbs chosen were the best and strongest. Yang Chun knew that these were not enough to affect him, so he deliberately added some medicinal herbs suggested by Lady Feng Hua and the other women. Knowing that this was what their husband wanted to take, the women were very cautious in the selection of medicinal herbs. They didn't know what Yang Chun was going to do. As for Yang Chun's explanation to them that he really wanted to clear the silt and eliminate internal heat, they didn't believe it at all. With her husband's cultivation level and powerful body refining technique, wouldn't it be a joke if he still needed to use the method of mortals in the mortal world? Just from the thoughts of the women, Yang Chun could understand why no cultivator had ever thought of this method before. Even Big Brother Li Cheng only knew the reason, but did not say any solution. Sometimes, when one stood too high, it was easy to not see clearly what was under one's feet. Since when did the high and mighty cultivators put the wisdom of mortals in their eyes? Yang Chun firmly remembered this lesson in his heart, and became more and more immersed in the process of refining the poison. Because he had never had such an experience, Yang Chun had to keep the medicinal pills refined for each revolution as a backup. The prerequisite was the appropriate amount of medicinal pills. If the toxicity was too strong, it would probably cause great harm to the cultivator's body, which would not be good. This kind of medicinal pill was almost not difficult for Yang Chun. The difficult part was to master the dosage and refining the revolution. Soon, Yang Chun had a lot of medicinal pills refined with different revolutions in his hands. Yang Chun didn't know how much medicinal pills were suitable, so he could only start with the lowest first revolution medicinal pill. He would take one first, and if it was useless, he would take 2 or 3. Basically, as long as it could take effect within 5 pills, Yang Chun would treat it as suitable. Unfortunately, first revolution medicinal pills basically had no effect on Yang Chun, so Yang Chun began to try second revolution medicinal pills. It was still limited to 5 pills. If it was not enough, he would change to 3 pills. Yang Chun's body was too strong. The second level of Kuai's body refining technique had already surpassed most of the cultivators in the immortal realm. Even many of the true immortals who had undergone innumerable tribulations could not compare with him. Even the 7th revolution pill could not make Yang Chun feel even a little bit uncomfortable. In this regard, Yang Chun was also very speechless. If he had known that this would happen, he would have directly used the 8th revolution pill instead of wasting so much time. Although he was grumbling, Yang Chun rested for a while and began to consume the 8th revolution pill. This time, it finally made Yang Chun feel a little bit. One pill was not enough to make Yang Chun uncomfortable, but it was enough to make him feel a little dizzy. Seeing that it worked, Yang Chun did not hesitate to take the 2nd and 3rd pill. At the same time, the rank 8 internal inspection liquid was slowly injected into Yang Chun's body from the blood vessels. This was the advantage of being an alchemist. He had a greater say in the control of medicinal properties. These were all pills refined by him. No matter how strong the effect was, it would only cause him to vomit and have diarrhea for a few days. It would not kill Yang Chun. Yang Chun was very relieved. The 8th revolution pill was really powerful. The 3 pills worked together, and Yang Chun's stomach suddenly turned over. A strong feeling of discomfort almost made Yang Chun want to vomit. Beads of sweat appeared on his head, which was rare. Lady Fanghua and the other women looked at their husband nervously. They could not understand why their husband was asking for trouble like this. However, in combination with Shi Wushuang's previous coma, they all agreed that their husband might be looking for what kind of poison would cause such harm to Shi Wushuang. He was looking for evidence of his crime. It was a feeling that he had not felt for a long time. His eyes were a little dazzled, and his body temperature began to rise. Yang Chun endured the discomfort and waited for the pill to have the greatest effect. This was just the beginning. The ideal situation was to have a high fever and then recover quickly. The internal inspection liquid began to work. Yang Chun's spiritual awareness immediately entered his body and began to carefully explore the changes in his body. Sure enough, the most subtle structural activities in the body had changed and were much more intense than before. Although it was impossible to see if there were any impurities precipitated out for the time being, it was obvious that every structure had increased its vitality. But on the whole, Yang Chun was already very uncomfortable. His body temperature had risen to the point of burning his hands, and then there was a strong desire to defecate. This was the first time that Yang Chun had encountered this in his thousands of years of cultivation. In the past, even if he took the 4 C's mysterious coral liquid, he just fell into a deep sleep. The body would naturally expel the impurities and wait until he woke up to wash it. He never had the urge to vomit and have diarrhea. But now Yang Chun, who was in the late Xian immortal stage, had these 2 feelings. Feeling that he couldn't stop, Yang Chun had vomited and had diarrhea 4 or 5 times in a row, but he still couldn't stop it. Fortunately, apart from these, Yang Chun was only hot and his mind was still normal. Lady Fanghua and the women were also watching nervously, but they did not interfere much. This was the feeling brought by his own initiative to take the medicine, and he was not really being plotted against. Moreover, all the medicinal materials were very clear to everyone. They were all selected by themselves one by one, and the biggest consequence was this, so no one would panic. Yang Chun did not take the right medicine to recover, but relied on his own body to survive. The uncomfortable state lasted for half a month, and Gao Yu and the others were alarmed. If it wasn't for knowing that Yang Chun was looking for his own sin, it was estimated that Gao Yu would find Lady Feng Hua to settle accounts. This was the woman that Yang Chun loved the most, and she couldn't stand Yang Chun being a little sad. Half a month later, Yang Chun recovered. Although the fever and vomiting and diarrhea for half a month made Yang Chun a little tired at first, but after just one cultivation session, Yang Chun noticed the difference in his body. His body became very refreshing, and it was very similar to the feeling after taking the 4C's mysterious coral liquid for the first time. It was a kind of refreshing relaxation. When cultivating, there was an indescribable feeling of carefreeness, as if the golden body secret art had become a lot easier. The realm was easily improved from close to the peak of Immortal. He really entered the peak of Immortal. It was as if he was just a little bit away at the time, and then he was gently pushed by someone behind him, and he passed the threshold. It was easy, comfortable, simple, and incredible. It worked. Yang Chun could be completely sure from his own body that this method really worked. This was not only a little survival wisdom of mortals, but also a method suitable for cultivators. A long time ago, Yang Chun understood that the Great Way was simple, and it was not so complicated. Now, it was confirmed by the changes in his body. The cleverness of ordinary people could solve the big problem of an innumerable tribulation, true immortal, at the critical moment. Moreover, it was a precaution in advance, which was much better than having a headache when the problem was about to happen. Chapter 2391. The pill recipe that Yang Chun had tested himself could not be called a pill recipe in the world of cultivators. It was clearly a kind of accumulation pill used by mortals in the mortal world. It added several kinds of medicinal herbs with stronger efficacy to purge the fire and eliminate the accumulation. It did not seem worthwhile to give it a new name in the cultivation world. However, Yang Chun still solemnly gave this elixir a new name with Lady Feng Hua and the other women, the barrier-removing elixir. The name was a little exaggerated. It sounded like the elimination of karma and the elimination of mental obstacles, but the effect did not seem to be exaggerated. Just as Yang Chun thought before, the Great Way was the simplest, and this elixir achieved this step. It was really a simple principle, but it could benefit an infinite tribulation, true immortal. Yang Chun had used it himself, and the next step was naturally to use it on his wives, concubines, relatives, and friends. The only trouble was that everyone's physique and cultivation were different, so the effect of the elixir needed was also different. For those who were more sensitive, as long as the 5 turns barrier-removing elixir could work, and for those who had a good foundation, they needed to reach the 7 turns to cause symptoms. At least among Yang Chun's wives and concubines, none of them needed to use the 8 turns barrier-removing elixir. The most powerful one, Zhou Xianying, only needed 5-7 turns barrier-removing elixir to make her whole body hot. This was not completely related to the cultivation, and the different degree of adaptation of the individual's body would also cause the same result. It did not mean that those with a high cultivation circle were excellent. Under the personal supervision of Yang Chun, the women took turns to take the barrier-removing elixir. After a period of discomfort, they recuperated and had a relaxed feeling as if they had been reborn. Although the performance was not as exaggerated as Yang Chun's immediate improvement in the realm, the flow of spiritual power in the meridians and body seemed to be a little easier during cultivation. As Yang Chun expected, he had not felt such pain and discomfort for thousands of years. After suddenly experiencing it once, it was really like dispelling the clouds and seeing the sun. It was very mysterious. When Yang Chun found Big Brother Li Chung again, he carried a barrier-dispelling pill recipe with him and asked Big Brother Li Chung for guidance. Li Chung looked at the serious look on Yang Chun's face and took a look at the jade slip that recorded the pill recipe. He almost threw it back at Yang Chun. Such an ordinary pill formula that could not be any more ordinary, Dare to take it out and let 9th grade alchemists correct it? If it weren't for the fact that Yang Chen was usually reliable and never had any big problems with his principles, Li Cheng might really have sent Yang Chen back. Forcefully suppressing his anger, big brother Li Cheng held the jade slip in his hand and twitched as if it would appear on Yang Chen in the next moment. He clenched his teeth and asked, "Who are you going to insult with such a lousy prescription? 9 revolution refinement? Your wife has a fever, but you also have a fever? Did you burn your brain?" "Big brother, have you ever noticed that there are many such things in the mortal world?" Yang Chen said unhurriedly. At the same time, he had already taken out the wine and wine glasses, filled them, and put them down. The two sat opposite each other and began to drink. After saying his own opinion, Yang Chen also said the performance of himself and his family these days. Li Cheng was relatively casual at first, but the more he listened, the more serious he became. His whole person became a little more solemn, his eyebrows began to wrinkle slightly, and he began to think carefully. When Yang Chen finished, big brother Li Cheng also fell into deep thought. "I am known for being omniscient in the world, but I never thought there was such a simple way." After a long time, big brother Li Cheng's face finally showed a smile. He reached out and picked up the wine glass in front of him. He said to Yang Chen, "What you said makes sense. The great Tao is simple, but I take it for granted." After drinking it, he laughed out loud. Just as he was about to say something, he couldn't help but laugh out loud again. "So it's that simple. Say, if Madame Bai knew that the reason he spent so much effort to arrange for Madame Bai to go down to the lower realm to earn merit points was actually solved by taking a few pills like yours every few hundred or thousand years, what do you think he would think?" I really want to see the expression on his face. Big brother Li Cheng laughed heartily, his eyes already drifting to who knows where, as if he was looking at Patriarch Lu's expression. This was the first time Yang Chen learned of Patriarch Lu's reason for sending Madame Bai down to the lower realm. If it was just to gain some merit, with Patriarch Lu's ability, how could he not gain a lot of merit in the immortal world? In the end, sealing her cultivation and sending her down to the spirit realm were all to avoid Madame Bai's calamity. As for how Patriarch Lu knew that Madame Bai would face this calamity, this question didn't need to be asked. With Patriarch Lu's ability, how could he not see Madame Bai's state? However, since big brother Li Cheng understood the reason for that state, how could he not think of a solution? "Because I cultivated from a mortal world to the spiritual world. I only understood it when you asked." Big brother Li Cheng was not afraid that Yang Chen knew something he didn't know. He replied very straightforwardly, "Of course, it is also due to the internal inspection fluid you refined. If it wasn't for that, I still wouldn't understand." Yang Chen's internal inspection fluid could only be refined to the 8th grade. It could allow Yang Chen to explore the most basic structure of the body, but it couldn't be explored if it was smaller. But this was not a problem for big brother Li Cheng. He was a 9th grade pill refiner. He knew the formula of the internal inspection fluid. It was easy to refine the 9 revolutions internal inspection fluid. It was normal for him to see places that Yang Chen couldn't. What I told you before is still a bit simple. Since it was said, big brother Li Cheng didn't mind letting Yang Chen know more. In fact, it's far more than the accumulation of impurities in the body. All kinds of negative emotions and all kinds of yin qi between heaven and earth are all related. It's the demonic qi and monster qi, right? Yang Chen directly took over the conversation and asked. Yes. Li Cheng was stunned for a moment, then remembered that Yang Chen was now an expert in this area. He nodded heavily. In the past, the one who tried to send the demonic qi and monster qi to the demon realm and the monster realm was to reduce the impact of this aspect for the cultivators of the immortal realm as much as possible. It is also a great merit. It is a great merit for the predecessors, but it is a great disaster for the future generations. Yang Chen couldn't help but sigh. The great man who came up with this method had good intentions, but it was at the cost of sacrificing the well-being of the future generations for the welfare of the predecessors. It was said that it was a merit, but it was not perfect enough. In your barrier dispelling pill, if you can add a little enough concentration of demonic qi and monster qi, it can make the cultivator feel that kind of discomfort, but it won't affect the cultivation base. Then it's basically almost the same. Li Cheng finally gave Yang Chun a little advice and let him perfect his barrier-dispelling pill. Chapter 2392. Yang Chun and his family had a basic resistance to the devil chi and monster chi. Even if they went to the immortal realm, they would not be affected. Therefore, they could really eliminate the accumulated fire by taking the simplest bottleneck-dispelling pill. But not all practitioners were like Yang Chun and his family, who had such resistance to the devil chi and monster chi. Therefore, Brother Li Cheng's reminder was very accurate. In addition, only Yang Chun could add a high concentration of devil chi and monster chi into the bottleneck-dispelling pill. The devil realm had been completely refined by Gong Sunling. Even if others wanted it, they might not have it, unless they had magic weapons like Yang Chen's 9 Serenities flying sword. However, only the disciples of the Zhao family had the opportunity to have devil chi and monster chi at the same time. Practitioners in the spiritual realm basically had no chance to have contact with a high concentration of monster chi. This was not difficult for Yang Chun. He could do it easily. In less than a month, Brother Li Cheng got the complete prescription of the bottleneck-dispelling pill and the 8 turns bottleneck-dispelling pill with devil chi and monster chi. According to Brother Li Cheng's requirements, the devil chi and monster chi in the 8 turns bottleneck-dispelling pill were so high that they could directly affect practitioners at the level of tribulation true immortal. However, the total amount was strictly controlled. It could not exceed the time of 10 breaths. In other words, the monster chi and devil chi could only affect practitioners for 10 breaths. The purpose was to arouse some negative emotions and the dark side of cultivation. It was not to make them sink into depravity. This was enough. Of course, this was the ratio of the 8 turns bottleneck-dispelling pill for tribulation true immortals. The lower the refining level, the less monster chi and devil chi and the lower the concentration. All right. Make a large batch of these pills and give a few to each of Madame Bai and the others. Brother Li Cheng finally nodded with satisfaction. The pills Yang Chun made were enough for Madame Bai and the others. In other words, even if Madame Bai and the maids could not save the spiritual realm, they could still solve the problems in the immortal realm. Yang Chun was now eagerly anticipating Madame Bai and the others' expressions when they returned to the immortal world and saw Ancestor Lu. He believed that Ancestor Lu would be very surprised when he saw them. Big brother, when Madame Bai wants to see Ancestor Lu, you have to bring us along. There were definitely not many times where he could see Ancestor Lu's wonderful expression. No matter what, he couldn't miss it. Yang Chun immediately asked Big Brother Li Cheng for help. As for why Big Brother Li Cheng would be able to see that scene, Yang Chun didn't need to ask. As long as Big Brother Li Cheng wanted to, he would definitely be able to see it. I have to prepare well. We'll talk about it when the time comes. Brother Li Cheng didn't refuse. He thought for a while with interest and nodded his head. Although he didn't say much, the elated expression on his face betrayed his thoughts. Yang Chun didn't ask Elder Brother Li Cheng whether he had taken a medicine or not. Elder Brother Li Cheng was a 9th grade alchemist. He didn't need to do anything at all. Maybe Elder Brother Li Cheng had already taken the 9 Revolutions barrier-dispelling pill. This pill, when do you plan to make it public? After deciding something in the immortal world, Elder Brother Li Cheng was in a good mood and asked casually, "There's no need to do so in the spiritual world, right?" Yang Chun replied subconsciously. Even if Zhou Sheng is still alive, he probably can't see the benefits of this barrier-dispelling pill. Selling goods to those who know them. We'll talk about it after we get to the immortal world. That's right. Elder Brother Li Cheng agreed with Yang Chen's statement. He nodded and suddenly said, "Maybe you can use this to exchange for another piece of land for Chunyang Palace." Yang Chun really had this plan, so he didn't feel embarrassed when Elder Brother Li Cheng said it. Apart from the ancestor of Chunyang Palace, no one else could ascend to the immortal world. In his previous life, when Yang Chun ascended to the immortal world, he didn't see the ancestor. He didn't know if he died or lived in seclusion. Anyway, the orthodoxy of Chunyang Palace had been completely lost. He was alone, and he was abused by the Xintian sect. Naturally, there was no need for a territory. Naturally, this life was very different. Chunyang Palace had the foundation of a super sect in the mortal world and the spiritual world. If it was managed well, it would be a new super sect in the future. A good foundation, of course, needed a good territory. After ascending, he had to find a place to settle down first. With this barrier-dispelling pill, the territory of Chunyang Palace in the immortal world would be settled. He didn't dare to say that he could get a territory comparable to that of a super sect, but there must be a lot of empty territories in the immortal world now. For example, the Three River Alliance, the Holocaust sect, and the Thousand Demon sect must have been strangled by other sects. It was not impossible to find a suitable place to open up in their territory. The matter of the immortal world was still far away, and there was still a hurdle to pass. If he couldn't get rid of the Zhao family, ascending was just a dream. Yang Chun would certainly not do the kind of thing where he ascended and let the later generations solve the problem. Since he had caught up, he had to solve the problem well. Here, Yang Chun and brotherly Chung had just determined the final formula of the barrier-dispelling pill. On the other side, the spiritual world also ushered in their biggest headache. As Yang Chun had reminded them before, there were 7 bridgeheads of the Zhao family refining the spiritual world. They appeared in 7 directions, one after another. However, because of Yang Chen's advance warning, the latter 4 were all discovered in advance and taken precautions in advance. As soon as the Zhao family's breath appeared, it was attacked by countless cultivators. It was a good thing to seize the initiative, but there was no way for the Joint Command to solve the problem of the spiritual world being refined once and for all. As soon as the Zhao family's breath appeared, it was a good thing, but it couldn't completely suppress the Zhao family to the point of being unable to fight back. At most, it could only greatly slow down the speed of the Zhao family refining the spiritual world. The Zhao family's cultivators appeared in the first 3 locations, and the prepared Joint Command Masters immediately attacked them. The problem was that those 3 locations were refined. As long as the Zhao family's cultivators could retreat to those areas in times of crisis, the experts of the spiritual world couldn't do anything to them. On the contrary, the cultivators of the spiritual world didn't have such benefits. Once they failed, the consequences would be serious injuries even if they didn't die. In the end, the cultivators of the spiritual world had no choice but to use a concentrated defensive array to surround those areas. A very embarrassing situation appeared at the scene. The spirit realm clearly had the advantage in numbers, and the Zhao family was surrounded and had a small territory. However, the Zhao family continued to attack, and the Joint Command could only adopt a defensive stance. There was nothing they could do. The remaining Golden Immortal experts were all separated to guard 7 points. Each point was guarded by a Golden Immortal expert, and the rest were used as mobile reinforcements. It seemed to be stabilized, but everyone understood that once the Zhao family concentrated on a certain point, 1 or 2 Golden Immortal experts wouldn't be able to defend at all. The Zhao family could change the point of attack at any time, but the Joint Command had to defend every point. The experts were exhausted and fell into a great passive state. At this time, someone remembered Gong Suanling's geographical map of mountains and rivers. Chapter 2393. If there was the mountain river geographical map, just like in the demon realm, the cultivators of all parties would not have to resist so hard, let alone pay so many casualties. In just a few months, they had lost thousands of Heaven Immortal experts just to fend off the cultivators of the Zhao clan who had mysteriously appeared from the 3 points. If this trend continued, the various sects in the spiritual realm would no longer be able to produce any experts that could be put on the table in a few years' time. However, they still had to guard against these 3 spots. If they didn't, the Zhao family would take the opportunity to expand their territory and increase the refining area. At that time, the refining area would become larger and larger, and it would be more difficult to defend it. This was a vicious cycle. The sad thing was that it was the major sects that were bearing the consequences of this. There was another strange thing. Ever since the major sects sent the Golden Immortal experts to the lower realm, no matter how many Golden Immortal experts died, there was no sign of more experts being sent down. It was unknown if there was a problem with the higher-ups or if there were some restrictions. In any case, What had happened was that the major sect was using various protective arrays to surround the three spots, guarding them strictly, fearing that the Zhao family would expand their territory a little. However, the expectation was good, but the reality was cruel. No matter how powerful the protective array was, in the face of a spatial magic treasure that could refine a world, it was just a beautiful decoration. The powerful protective array and the powerful array to solidify the spiritual meridians were not worth mentioning in front of the spatial magic treasure of the Dragon Clan expert of the Zhao family. The cultivators who set up the array and the golden immortal experts who guarded the array could only watch helplessly as the array was devoured bit by bit. The cultivators of the sect had lost count of all kinds of protective arrays, suppression arrays, and even offensive arrays. Up until now, none of them had worked. At its best, it would only slow down the refinement speed of the other party, and that was all. No matter what method they used, no matter what ability they used, and no matter whether the energy source of the array was spirit stones or spiritual meridians, the array was melting bit by bit, and there was no way to stop it. This was definitely the worst news for the Alliance commander. They were unable to stop the refinement, and could only watch as their territory was lost. Was there no hope for the spiritual realm, just like that? Gongsun Ling's Mountain River geographical map was once again remembered by the high-level members of the Joint Command. If there was a glimmer of hope in the spiritual world to block the Zhao family's refining of the spiritual world, they were afraid that only Gongsun Ling's Mountain River geographical map could be used. Being refined by Gongsun Ling was better than being refined by the Zhao family. Moreover, Gongsun Ling did not necessarily need to refine the spiritual world. As long as she refined the 7 points around the Zhao family and surrounded them, she could stop them from refining the spiritual world. The spirit realm was willing to pay such a small price. Besides, if the spiritual realm couldn't change its fate of being refined, the United Commander was more willing to let Gongsun Ling refine it. The 3 points on this side were in dire straits, and the 4 points that were discovered in advance were also in imminent danger. The Zhao family had prepared for tens of thousands of years, so how could they fail just because they were discovered in advance? All the experts and the 4 golden immortals could do was to slow down the rate of refinement of the 4 bridgeheads by 10 times. However, all the cultivators present knew that it was only a matter of time before they were refined. This was because they could now see traces of corrosion in the areas that were suppressed by their various powerful arrays. It was a sign of refinement. However, they could only watch and were powerless to stop it. As long as they touched that area, they would be attacked by space. This wasn't an ordinary cultivator's attack, but a space attack. The refined space was very small, but the attacks that landed on the body were not light at all. Even the golden immortal grandmasters who were in charge were fiercely blasted back dozens of times, unable to resist at all. This was also another reason why everyone decided to let Gongsun Ling take action. Again, Gongsun Ling was probably the only one who could stop all this. No one else could do it. However, it might not go smoothly to beg Yang Chun and Gongsun Ling. The greed of the golden immortal grandmasters of the Ghost Yin sect and the Ghost sect destroyed the tacit cooperation before. Although Yang Chun only imprisoned them later, everyone could see the anger of Yang Chun at that time. Fortunately, Master Yang retained his rationality while he was angry. Otherwise, none of the 6 golden immortal grandmasters would have survived. If that really happened, the Ghost Yin sect and the Ghost sect and the other sects would have a huge estrangement with the United Commander. Even if they still cooperated, they would certainly not be able to work together as before. Master Yang's reservation also showed his attitude. When it was time to cooperate, everyone still had to cooperate. Many cultivators understood this. Even the Ghost Yin sect and the Ghost sect were no exception. The series of flattery to the Chunyang Palace was to repair the relationship. There was still a long time before the final refining, but now no one wanted to wait until the time was out of control to make a final decision. After a brief discussion among the high-level leaders of the United Commander, more than a dozen sect masters, including the Commander-in-Chief, the Island Master of the Green Jade Immortal Island, returned to the entrance of the Demon Realm to visit Yang Chun again. In the past, Yang Chun was very respectful to these predecessors, and the reception was very formal and solemn. But this time, Yang Chun seemed to be in a hurry to receive them. There were even some traces of fighting on his body, and he appeared in front of the sect masters, which seemed very rude. The Zhao family's offensive is very fierce. Seeing the sect masters of the United Commander, Yang Chun apologized and then explained why he was in such a hurry. The faces of the island master and the others also became ugly. Needless to say, the Zhao family's offensive was so fierce that they wanted to contain Gong Sunling and firmly pin Gong Sunling at the entrance of the demon realm, so that she could not be distracted to rescue the spiritual world. The next moment, everyone came to the edge of a certain place in the demon realm. Here, everyone could see that the mountain river geographical map and the other party's space magic weapon were colliding, and in the gap between the two sides, more than a dozen golden immortal masters were entangled. 6 of them were the 6 golden immortal masters of the Ghostine sect and the Ghost sect, which were imprisoned by Yang Chun. The opponents were naturally the golden immortal masters of the Zhao family. Looking at this scene, everyone's face became ugly again. One of the reasons why everyone's face was ugly was that the other party had more people than Yang Chen's side, and 6 golden immortal masters were struggling to support. And the traces on Yang Chen's body just now were obviously also involved in the previous battle. If it weren't for the need to greet the sect masters, perhaps Yang Chun would not have appeared. Chapter 2394. Yang Chen's wives and concubines were also distributed in a large area and were also fighting with a large number of Zhao family's experts. Although the women's combat effectiveness was very strong, they could only injure the opponent at most and could not kill them. As long as they were injured, the other party would return to their own territory in time, and it would be too late to catch up. Similarly, Yang Chen's side also enjoyed the same benefit. When there was a lack of strength, the women would also take the initiative to return to the mountain river geographical map. The only thing that performed better than the Zhao family's Xian immortal experts was that none of the women were injured, and even restrained 2 golden immortal experts. Does your wife still have the strength to take care of the spiritual world? The island lord did not talk much nonsense and directly raised his own question. On Yang Chen's side, a look of embarrassment appeared on his face. Did Gong Sunling have the strength to spare? Of course she did. But why did Yang Chun let Gong Sunling destroy Madame Bai's method of gaining merits? Even if Yang Chun had a way to solve Madame Bai's problem, since Ancestor Liu had arranged it so, would it make Ancestor Liu happy to destroy it? In fact, Yang Chun had expected this situation a long time ago. It was certain that the joint command would come to him. For this reason, Yang Chun even revealed a little news to Yang Lan and asked him to arrange for Gong Sunling and the Zhao family dragon clan to fight against each other. At the same time, the Zhao family also sent out 10 golden immortal masters. 6 of them were fighting against the 6 Ghost Insects golden immortal experts. 2 of them were restrained by Yang Chen's wives and concubines, while Yang Chun alone restrained 2 Zhao family's golden immortal experts. Now that Yang Chun was accompanying the various sect masters and the 2 Zhao family's golden immortal experts were freed up, the 8 golden immortal experts besieged the 6 of them and gained the upper hand. If it wasn't for the 6 golden immortal experts who could return to the mountain river geographical map in time to take a breather, maybe there would be casualties in such a short time. Even so, the 6 golden immortal experts were exhausted and in a sorry state. The Zhao family really didn't want Gong Sunling to be distracted to the spiritual world refining side, so they worked hard in the monster realm. They really couldn't move Yang Chen's side. In a situation where Yang Chun didn't take the initiative to kill, being suppressed like this was the most normal situation. Right in front of these sect leaders, a golden immortal expert on their side was suddenly besieged by 3 golden immortal experts of Zhao clan. After spurting out a mouthful of blood, he fled back into the geographical map in a sorry state. Yang Chun was shocked. In a flash, he appeared beside that golden immortal expert. He took out a pill and fed it to that golden immortal expert. Yang Chen's pill was now a guarantee of conscience in the spiritual realm. With a pill, the injury immediately healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. In a short while, the Golden Immortal expert recovered to normal. However, he didn't return to the battlefield immediately. Instead, he rested for a moment at a spiritual vein that Gong Sunling had drawn over. He didn't have time to greet the sect masters who were watching from a distance and return to the battlefield directly. The distance was a deliberate move by Yang Chun. Everything shown here was actually a projection of the immortal realm in a mountain river geographical map. What everyone saw was only a shadow. No one used their divine sense to explore, so naturally they couldn't find the abnormality. Even if they used their divine sense, it seemed normal for some heaven immortal experts to not be able to find the golden immortal experts. No one doubted everything here. The sect masters of all parties also saw that Yang Chun was indeed a bit stretched here. In order to suppress Yang Chun and Gong Sunling, the other party actually sent a total of 10 golden immortal experts. At the same time, there was also a space magic weapon bombarding them. The scale of this move was even stronger than any bridgehead in the spiritual realm. In this case, it was a bit too much to ask Yang Chun and Gong Sunling to support the side in the spiritual realm. Moreover, Yang Chun's side was really hard. If he was distracted, he was afraid that he would even lose the entrance to the demon realm. It was important to guard the 7 bridgeheads, but the entrance to the demon realm was more important. The territory of the 7 bridgeheads added up was not as big as this entrance. If they lost the entrance to the demon realm for the sake of the 7 points in the spiritual realm, it would be called not worth it. It was estimated that if they really did that, the Zhao family would laugh until they cried. Of course, the sect masters who were in charge of the joint command would not be so ignorant and would not do such a thing as picking sesame seeds and losing watermelon. However, although they couldn't transfer Gong Sunling from the spiritual realm, they could still consult Yang Chun. Hadn't Yang Chun already reminded everyone of the array formation that the Zhao family might use last time? If there were any hints in this regard, it might also work. Since we are sure that the Zhao family is using the 7 stars array, can't we just break this array formation? Yang Chun was indeed not stingy and gave a very straightforward suggestion. Using this 7 stars array is definitely a way to refine the spiritual realm on a large scale and affect the entire spiritual realm. If we break this 7 stars array, the Zhao family can only rely on a few points to gnaw at the spiritual realm bit by bit. How long can they last? Maybe in a few decades, the demon realm will be almost refined by both sides. At that time, it doesn't matter whether we refine the spiritual realm or not. Break the 7 stars array. At first, everyone was only worried that the spiritual realm would be refined. Only now did they realize that there was a reason why the other party had to set up a 7 stars array. If it was only refined bit by bit, as Yang Chun said, how long would it take to refine it? Even if they let the Zhao family refine it, how much could they refine in a few decades? Don't look at how many tens of thousands of years the demon realm Zhao family had set up. Until now, they hadn't refined half of it, and so much had been snatched by Gong Sunling. The Zhao family in the spiritual realm had almost no foundation now, and their refining speed would definitely be like a tortoise's crawl. There was really no need to panic. Just as Yang Chun reminded, the 7 stars array was the key. They couldn't let the array formation take shape, otherwise it would be the real beginning of the disaster. I'm actually not good at array formations. I know some things from the Immortal beheading platform, but I can't do anything about how to do it. Yang Chun directly attributed the information he knew about the 7 stars array to the Immortal beheading platform. Anyway, no one could verify it. As for the solution, Yang Chun took a step back and used the excuse that he wasn't good at array formations. What a joke. Tell everyone and let everyone snatch Madame Bai's merit. The sect masters of the United Command came and left in a hurry. Since they knew the possible solution, staying at Yang Chun's place would not only delay them from fighting against the enemy, but also delay the situation in the spiritual realm. It was better to leave as soon as possible. All the array formation experts of each sect were gathered here for only one purpose, and that was to find a way to break the huge variant 7 stars array that the Zhao family had spread throughout the entire spiritual realm. The United Command had arranged a generous reward. Whichever cultivator could break the array, each super sect would fulfill a request that was within their ability. The reward could not be said to be small. Money moved people's hearts, and with a great reward, there would be brave people. Under the stimulation of the United Command's great reward, countless array formation experts began to think about how to break the 7 stars array. Chapter 2395. It was very easy to break an ordinary 7-star array. As long as the position of the array I was found, there were various ways to break it. However, a 7-star array that could refine the entire spiritual realm, and it had been improved by a powerful master, was not so simple. The array I was no longer Tian Shu. This had been confirmed. The position of Tian Shu had been besieged by the masters of the major sect once, but there was no response, and it had almost no impact on the overall situation. Similarly, the other positions were also not the real array I. It was impossible to break such a large array that directly encompassed the entire spiritual realm in such an easy way. In addition, because the range of the array was too large, it was very difficult for the array masters of all parties to find the flaws of the array. A slight miscalculation might only be a millimeter difference on the array diagram, but if it was magnified to the entire spiritual realm, it was probably enough to be thousands of miles off. Just accurately finding some specific points on the array diagram was enough to give countless cultivators a headache. Fortunately, some array calculation masters and specialized masters of the major sect cooperated to be able to cooperate with the various experiments of all parties. Yang Chun couldn't be counted on, and looking at the situation of Yang Chen's family, it seemed that they were also struggling to resist. In other words, Yang Chun made a somewhat rash guarantee that the entrance to the demon realm would not be lost. Now, everyone could see that Yang Chun was almost doing his best to guard the entrance to the demon realm. If the Zhao family did not intend to attack the spiritual realm, but concentrated all their forces to attack the entrance to the demon realm, perhaps Yang Chen's family might not be able to resist. Fortunately, the joint command parties still trusted Yang Chen for the time being, and believed that Yang Chen's family could still hold on. Because so far, no matter how hard Yang Chen's family worked, Yang Chen's dragon friends had not been mobilized. The higher-ups believed that Yang Chen would definitely pay a huge price if he wanted the dragon experts to mobilize, but this price was not enough for Yang Chen to be unwilling to pay at the moment of life and death for his family. Since Yang Chen did not use the Dragon Clan's experts, it meant that Yang Chen's family could still hold on for the time being. Thinking about it, everyone felt ashamed. Yang Chen's family and the 6 Golden Immortal experts only had a total of 50 people. Although they were all peak Xian Immortal and Golden Immortal experts, they were facing 10 Golden Immortal experts and hundreds of Xian Immortal experts. The pressure was not ordinary. On the other hand, Yang Chen's family was still able to persevere under such circumstances, while the many powerhouses in the spiritual realm were helpless. It was simply a great contrast and a great irony. Everything was afraid of comparison. Money and goods had to be thrown away, and comparisons were fatal. Compared to Yang Chen's family, the many super sect in the spiritual realm had really lost all their dignity. Even the inspiration to break the formation was provided by Yang Chen. It wasn't that the major sects didn't have capable people who couldn't think of how to break the formation, but these people were either insignificant, or the moment they proposed it, they were refuted by people of the same level or even higher level from other sects, so they couldn't do anything. On the contrary, it was Yang Chen who directly faced the sect leaders of the sect. Moreover, the facts had proven that Yang Chen's previous decision was correct. His words carried weight, and he had an advantage over the other experts who collaborated on the research. In order not to be despised by Yang Chen's side, the various sects clenched their teeth and began to fight desperately. On the one hand, they sent experts to guard each point strictly, and on the other hand, they put all their efforts into researching ways to break the formation. If they could even roughly figure out the location of the other party's formation, but still couldn't find a way to break the formation, there would be no need for so many super sect members to survive. Under the pressure of the joint command from top to bottom, the formation experts really found a few ways. After practical experiments, there were 3 methods that stood out. The main difference between the three methods was the location of the formation eye to break the formation. After research and calculation by different experts, the three different formation eyes had different effects. The one with the lowest effect could comprehensively slow down the speed at which the Zhao family refined the spiritual realm. The principle was to use a similar small formation to interfere. Compared to the 7 stars formation that the Zhao family had set up all over the spiritual realm, it was at most 1/10 of the other party's size. Even so, it was a rare large formation in the spiritual realm. Strictly speaking, it could not be considered breaking the Zhao family's formation, but it could slow down the speed of refining the spiritual realm as a whole. Coupled with the formation set up at the bridgehead, it could buy more time for the spiritual realm. In particular, this formation could be far away from the 7 bridgeheads, so it was relatively safe. It was successfully approved and retained. The second formation was also to interfere with the Zhao family's formation. In principle, it was based on the opposite of the 7 stars formation that had been researched and counteracted the other party's effect. If it was used properly, it could render the other party's 7 stars formation useless. Unfortunately, the biggest flaw of this formation was that it had to be set up at least as big as the Zhao family's formation and in the opposite direction. For the time being, the major sect could not do it because there was no place in the spiritual realm that was large enough for the formation to take shape. They could only set up an area about half the size of the other parties. In addition, the time was rushed. It had been set up in less than a year, which could not be compared to the Zhao family's tens of thousands of years of setting up. Naturally, the relative counteracting effect was reduced a lot. The third formation was a different approach and used a similar idea to the refinement space. Didn't the other party want to refine the entire spiritual realm? In that case, this formation also used the refining method and directly competed with the other party to refine the spiritual realm at close range. Although the spiritual realm cultivators had never thought of refining a realm's magic treasure, it was already a fact that the Mountain River geographical map had appeared and the magic treasure in the hands of the Zhao family's dragon expert had appeared. This showed that it was not impossible to refine an entire world. Countless master refiners began to put in effort in this aspect. Not to mention, some guys who were good at refining spatial magic treasures came up with some methods. According to their comprehensive research, they worked with hundreds of refining experts to refine several large-scale refining formations. These spell formations surrounded the 7 points and began to refine the spirit realm. However, they were only refining in the same way as refining spatial magic treasures, but by a stroke of luck, it was very effective in offsetting the Zhao family's erosion of the spiritual realm. After all, they were both refining, but these formations were refining on the spot, while the Zhao family was refining with an unknown distance and relying on the formation to refine, so they were naturally at a disadvantage. In less than 10 years, the situation in the spiritual realm was finally stabilized with 3 formations being set up at the same time. The senior executives of the Joint Command Center all heaved a sigh of relief. After all, there were still capable people in the spiritual realm, and Yang Chen's family was not the only one who was useful. Now, they were just waiting for the result of Gong Suanling's side and the other party's fight for the demon realm. When the demon realm was divided between the 2 sides, it was probably the time for the decisive battle. Chapter 2396. The United Command thought that the 3 formations were very useful, but in fact, the effects of the formations were exaggerated by at least 100 times. The ones that were really effective were not the 3 formations, but Madame Bai and her group. Somewhere far away from the Big Dipper formation, Madame Bai and her group of 1,000 people worked together to set up a special formation. The location was very strange. It was not in front of the Zhao family's Big Dipper formation, and it did not seem to make sense. However, if one were to fold it according to a special angle and make precise calculations, it should be the North Star position relative to the Big Dipper formation. Madame Bai was the formation eye of the formation, and her current location was the real key to breaking the Big Dipper formation. After leaving Yang Chen's place, Madame Bai and the others quickly rushed here. It had actually been 10 years since the formation was set up. The United Command saw that the speed at which the Zhao family refined the spiritual realm was actually the result of Madame Bai and her group holding back 99% of the power. Even so, the higher-ups of the United Command were so scared that they broke out in cold sweat. If they knew the truth, who knew how shocked they would be? On the Zhao family's side, the process of refining the spiritual realm was slowed down by 100 times, and the United Command used all kinds of methods to stop them. The higher-ups finally got angry and sent more and more experts to harass the Zhao family. After stabilizing the situation of the spiritual realm being refined, the United Command began to resist the Zhao family's attack without caring about the cost. With the 3 formations to resist, the United Command also set up a batch of defensive formations around them. As long as the cultivators of the spiritual realm could escape into the defensive formations, they would be protected by them. It was the same principle as how the Zhao family's experts could appear and disappear unpredictably in the refined spiritual realm. Almost everything was learned from the Zhao family, but they were not as thorough and efficient as the Zhao family. Everyone could understand this. After all, the Zhao family had arranged everything for at least tens of thousands of years, but the United Command was able to gain a foothold in less than 10 years. It was simply an amazing achievement. However, there were still continuous casualties. Under such circumstances, the 2 sides were fighting fiercely. Some of the experts in the spiritual realm were really angry during the battle. They no longer cared if there was a guarantee in the future. Most of the time, they directly traded lives for lives and injuries, causing many casualties to the Zhao family. However, the spiritual realm's powerhouses did not fare well either, and they suffered heavy casualties too. Fortunately, the number of casualties was within the range that the Joint Command could tolerate, and the spiritual world had an advantage that the Zhao family did not have. That was, the spiritual world could get the healing medicinal pills refined by Master Yang Qinyang. Even if it was only the 6th or 7th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, as long as it was not a golden immortal master who suffered a very serious injury, ordinary celestial immortal and Xian immortal cultivators would basically be cured. While the 2 sides were in a stalemate, the speed at which the demon realm was being refined grew faster and faster. As both sides refined more of the demon realm space, the spatial magic treasures of both sides were greatly improved, and the refining speed increased dramatically. In just 20 years, most of the space in the spiritual realm had been divided due to the competition between the 2 sides, and the speed of refinement had also slowed down. Both Gong Sunling and her 3rd primordial spirit knew very well that this was a sign that they had reached the core region of the demon realm. During the refining process, both sides also found that the demonic qi was getting thicker and thicker, and the speed of refinement was also getting slower and slower. The demon realm did not have the lock that Brotherly Chung refined, which could seal the passage that sent demonic qi from the immortal realm to the demon realm. So the demonic qi here had been constantly increasing. In the end, both sides were refining the demon realm almost in units of inches, and the speed was still further decreasing. At this point, Gong Sunling and her 3rd primordial spirit were smart enough not to forcibly refine it. At least before Brotherly Cheng's lock was completed, it would not be of much use even if they expended energy to refine it, because the demonic qi was too thick. Brotherly Chung had refined 2 locks in the past, one of which was used in the demon realm, and the other was definitely used in the demon realm. However, Gong Sunling and Yang Chun knew these secrets, but the Zhao clan's Dragon Clan expert did not, and was still working hard to refine it. He also found that the density of the demonic qi had increased, and knew that it was the core region. He who did not know the inside story worked even harder to refine the core region. One had to know that an inch of space here was equivalent to 100 or even 1,000 miles around it. Gong Sunling pretended to be competitive, but in fact, she was already consolidating the results of the refining. There were no demon beasts in the core region. The Mountain River geographical map had collected almost 1/3 of the demon beasts in the demon realm. Hundreds of billions of demon beasts were queuing up from the mortal world to transcend the tribulation and ascend to the spiritual realm to become real demon cultivators. Even some of the demon beasts near the core region had surpassed the Xian Immortal and reached the golden Immortal level. These demon beasts were the first to transcend the tribulation. Unfortunately, although their strength had reached the golden Immortal level, they only had intelligence after ascending to the spiritual realm. The various sects in the Mountain River geographical map were all fighting bare-chested. Yang Chun did not let them directly transcend the divine immortal tribulation and ascend immediately. Instead, he let these demon cultivators join the various sects and receive some systematic cultivation training. Overall, the Mountain River geographical map was steadily becoming stronger. Although the Zhao family's space magic treasure was strong, they didn't have heaven's tribulation. If there were no new cultivators or demon beasts to join, perhaps it could only maintain this power and could not be improved. Perhaps the Dragon Clan master of a Zhao family also realized this. In addition to working hard in the core region of the demon realm, he was also working hard to find a way to deal with the spiritual realm. For a long time, he didn't even collide with Gong Sunling. Most of his energy was divided into these two directions. Yang Chun and Gong Sunling were sitting on the fishing platform. They continued to steadily improve the power of the Mountain River geographical map while watching coldly. Madame Bai was there to refine the spiritual realm, but the core of the demon realm was affected by the endless demonic aura from the celestial realm. Even if she wanted to refine it, she didn't have the strength to do so. No matter how hard she tried, it would be a waste of energy. After decades, the casualties of the spiritual realm and the Zhao family had accumulated to a frightening number. It could be said that both sides were exhausted and had no strength to continue. It was impossible for there to be any major changes in the refining space. Yang Chan was ready for the final battle. He was only waiting for the Joint Command and the Zhao family to take action. However, it seemed that the Zhao family was still hoping for a breakthrough in the refining of the spiritual realm and was still working hard. Yang Chen was not in a hurry. Anyway, the more he waited, the stronger the Mountain River geographical map would be. Now, it was up to Madame Bai to cut off the Zhao family's ambition for the spiritual realm. At that time, it would be the real decisive battle. He believed that day would not be too far away.